Got no
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another Friday, another episode of Heavy Metallurgy, number 235. Hope you've had a great week and are doing well. I'm surrounded by two awesome people, and one of which is my awesome co-host, Alan. How are you?
I'm doing all right, Marty. End of another long week, but yeah, been looking forward to just getting to hang out and have fun with all of y'all. What's up in your area?
Just another week, cooling off. Talked Wednesday, we had a flood in the basement. That was awesome.
No. Yeah, thanks.
Lost about 200 to 400 promo CDs that I've had since the Worm Gear Metal Maniacs days.
Oh, that's the worst.
Threw the whole box in the garbage, and yeah, it was kind of a vital library for metallurgy, and so it bums me. Anyway, blah blah blah, whatever. Shit, when you put stuff in a basement, like I said, basements are great until they're not great, and it's happened twice here that it hasn't been great. But you have a big collection, you have to put it somewhere, and it's usually under pipes or around pipes. It is what it is. Whatever. It's expendable. It's all expendable, and I can't take it with me. So anyway, we're joined once again by Melanie from Melanie Loves Death Metal. Mel, welcome back. It's good to see you. How are you?
Oh, good. Happy it's Friday. This has just been one of the longest treacherous weeks of bullshit at work. So I definitely disassociated as much as I possibly could when it was done today, and drank a beer at 3:00 in the afternoon, which I can't remember the last time I've done that.
Well, you work from home. You can do that anytime you'd like. Actually,
yeah, that's heavily frowned upon, though, unfortunately.
No, they're not checking your blood alcohol levels. Well, it's certainly good to see you. What's been going on over at Melanie Loves Death Metal? We'll get the house cleaning done before we go into our topic tonight.
Same old collection updates, talking a little bit more extensively about what I'm showing. I started doing playlists on Sunday where I'm just playing music for an hour, no talking, just, showcasing bands that you may not have heard too much about, which has been fun to do. I know a lot of other YouTubers do stuff like that, and it doesn't get the most views, but a lot of people have messaged me like, "Oh, you've talked about that band. I didn't actually listen to it until I listened to it on your playlist, and that was actually really good." And I'm like, so that's fun, and
that's the whole point. Yep.
Yeah, so I've been enjoying that. But yeah, I mean, nothing new. We're coming up on the year end, so it's going to be a lot of year end list recordings coming up soon because there's not a whole lot coming out in the next couple weeks that I'm really looking forward to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's only one or two that I'm still kind of waiting for here last
pretty
minute.
much like one or two things that I know for a fact. But for the most part, it'll be next year. Oh, I missed out on this, and I'll talk about it.
Well, awesome. It's good to see you. Thank you again for joining us, and everybody filling into the chat. Welcome. Hope you all had a good week.
Yeah, lots of folks in the chat saying hello, and glad y'all are joining us for this one. And we're all looking to Simon to lead the hilarity here a bit in the chat for sure.
Miss A, what did he think? He had to appreciate it. He's a musician type. He probably dug it. Anyway. Well, last time we were all together, the whole idea of the AC/DC catalog came up, which I was very quiet about, hoping that would kind of pass over. Guess what? It didn't. That didn't pass over, everybody. Here we are, AC/DC.
I really didn't think you were gonna. I thought for sure you were just gonna be like, you, Alan, and somebody else. I'll sit out on this one.
I thought it'd be a piece of cake, but like I was telling everybody, I'm about 4 days past my limit of AC/DC for the year. Too much overload.
Well, hey, you've met your deductible, so the rest of it for the rest of the year is free.
Free and clear. Hell yeah. Alan, did you want to go into a bit of history before we start digging into this, or do you want to just dig into it?
We hit the highlights here. Folks know this band, incredibly well. the Young brothers, the family, emigrated to Australia when they were kids. Grew up there in a very, musically inclined family. Their older brother George, had some international success, with the easy beats. They were always kind of like right on the cusp of breaking it very big through like, kind of the mid and late 60s. It toured internationally, had some hit singles, but never quite grabbed that brass ring. And it had a big effect on George. He kind of, in hindsight, understood where the band messed up. And so when his younger brothers started looking into developing careers as musicians, something their dad was not very happy about, George was kind of bound and determined to make sure they didn't fall into the same pitfalls that his band had. George, and one of his longtime friends had become, very well renowned like songwriters, producers. They've done tons of stuff for all kinds of Australian artists through the years. But of course, George was kind of made a personal mission to shepherd Malcolm and Angus through the trials of the record industry so that they could succeed where he wasn't able to. Which I always thought, that was, very commendable. It makes sense on one level, their family, but at the same time, a lot of people might have just, wanted nothing to do with it at all, or could have gotten pissed off that, other family members, little brothers did better than he did. But no, he really took them under his wing and helped them along. Yeah, it took a while to build up. It's something I don't know if we appreciate now, but trying to, be a band in a relatively small territory like Australia in the 1970s, you didn't automatically have international airplay on YouTube and TikTok to help make you big. You really had to work your way up from the smallest club circuits locally to regionally to then maybe nationally if you're lucky. And even that was no guarantee whatsoever of success on an international stage. But of course, the band made it. They had, went through members over time, gelled with a particular charismatic singer named Bon Scott for the run of albums that saw them rise to, international recognition. Tragedy struck there. We don't need to dwell on that. Folks will know the details. But in the wake of that tragedy, they somehow found, a very suitable replacement in Brian Johnson and ended up releasing what's got to be considered one of the 10 or 20 most iconic rock and roll albums of all time from anywhere by anybody, with Back in Black. We'll get back to that later. And from there, the joke with AC/DC has always been that they just kind of make the same album over and over. A reporter famously once
It's not a joke. It's fucking true.
Well, a reporter once asked, Angus something about this. Like, well, what's it like, knowing that, you've just kind of released the same album, 13 times, and Angus's reply was like, no, wait a minute. That's not right. We've made the same album 14 times. So, I mean, they understand it. There's always been, a focus in the band that they were drawing on their inspiration, which was early rock and roll, 50s, up through early mid 60s stuff. And they've basically stayed in their lane. Now, there are variations, on that theme from album to album. Production has changed. Some members have changed. Some albums lean a little more towards one thing or another. But yeah, they've never done any crazy experimentation. They didn't do a Marilyn Manson album in the 90s. They didn't do a thrash metal album in the 80s. AC/DC is their own institution. And they are one of those rare cases of a band that can pull that off and retain a gigantic and loyal following. Most bands, if they become that consistent, people lose interest over time. But there have been a few special cases, such as AC/DC. Motorhead would be another one, where they can simply do their own thing, and it's sincere enough and it's well executed enough that people will stick with them through thick and thin. And yeah, that's AC/DC in a nutshell. So, Marty, you're a little less enthused on this topic, but what is your kind of just personal history with AC/DC?
It's not that dissimilar to anybody. I mean, I grew up Northern Michigan Rock Radio, they're still playing the same 4 or 5 AC/DC songs. I mean, I could turn on WKLT right now, probably. It's either Zeppelin, the 2 Thin Lizzy songs, or AC/DC. Shook Me All Night Long, back in You Shook Me All Night Long. I don't know. Shit off of Back in Black, and Long Way to the Top. You Want to Rock and Roll. I mean, just the typical stuff. So I didn't mind it. I liked it. And then I started getting MTV and Much Music, and started seeing For Those About to Rock video and other live video clips, and I liked them. I thought they were okay. It wasn't until when I was younger, the Columbia House thing, you send in a penny and you get 12 tapes. I would get, a handful of, I had a handful of cassette tapes from that band. Flick of the Switch, Fly on the Wall, Back in Black, For Those About to Rock. I got rid of them all over the years, but it wasn't until I started working at a bigger screen printing company here. There was a guy that was just big into them, and to be cool and to be accepted, I went and burnt a bunch of stuff, the Bon Scott era, and we'd just listen to those CDs over and over. And I started to really like them more than just the casual, oh, here's that song they play on the radio all the time. So I liked them, and really, I never fully fell in love. I do really like the Bon Scott era. I like some of the Brian Johnson albums too. But I just got to say, a cautionary tale for those watching. When I'm in the mood for AC/DC, I grab them, I put them on, and I'm psyched. It's just feel good, really awesome music, especially the Bon Scott era. He was just such a character, such a charismatic singer. His voice didn't sound strained. It was just the way he's talked, and I liked hearing the tales that he was talking about. But when you start the beginning and work your way through one after the other, it's a lot you start to realize pretty quick that AC/DC, for me anyway, they do one thing, they do it really well. And ultimately, to the music scene at large, they don't really have much to offer. Unless you like the 12-bar blues. I mean, it's all over. The blues are all over their catalog. And I mean, it's just blues riffs you've heard a million times before AC/DC ever touched it. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. They perform a service. And if you really enjoy that service, you're psyched. And every time, and I started the comment right here from Mean Metal Mike 666. There is no bad album in AC/DC's discography. And you know what? I agree with that. They have not done anything to torpedo their career. Even when I thought that Brian Johnson's voice was roached, you see live stuff, he sounds like crap. He sounds really good on all these records. He sounds pretty consistent. So yeah, they've done nothing to shoot down their career. It's just every album's the same, and listening to it one after the other, you realize pretty quick that there's not a lot to offer. I don't know. What do you think, Mel?
I first heard them at a very young age. I mean, it was a common thing played in my house. My parents are like the stereotypical 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, like all that stuff was always playing. In the 70s era, AC/DC, were played a lot in my house. My dad actually had this on cassette tape. I just remember seeing that picture and being like, oh, that looks like Led Zeppelin. Not knowing, against my better judgment, it's not. And I was such a huge Led Zeppelin fan. And so that was honestly like the first AC/DC stuff that I ever really remember listening to. And I was obsessed with that album. I think the first like real album that I heard and fell in love with, the album cover, everything, was Powerage, like just that right there. But I got to be honest with you, it took me many years to know that they were two different singers, because I was not so close into the band's history. I didn't know that Bon Scott passed away. I had no idea if they got Brian Johnson. Like, I thought he just got older and had a raspier voice. Like, he wasn't sounding young anymore. Like, it was such a like mind warp when I finally like got the internet and started like diving more into the band. I'm like, wait a damn minute. why didn't anybody tell me that? Like Back in Black, obviously, you know, is such a well-known album. I probably played that to death. It was one of the first like AC/DC albums that I bought, along with, you know, High Voltage and Powerage, like all that stuff. And the first Brian Johnson album that I actually really realized it was him, you know. But it's been a band that, again, like you said, Marty, I don't think there's a single bad album in their discography.
No.
They have a well-oiled machine. They have a recipe that has worked for them. They've stuck to it. Yeah, there's been some highs and lows like within their career where some things maybe seem a little flat and maybe the energy isn't there like it was on other albums. But again, they've been around for 50 years. So like keeping up that momentum and that, you know, that urgency and that is tough for a band like that. I mean, Iron Maiden has a lot of the same issues with a lot of their albums too, but I still like every single one of their albums. And yeah, there's ones I listen to a lot more than others. But going back the last, you know, what, 2 to 3 weeks now that we've had this planned, I find myself like dancing around and being happy when it's on. Like it's just really feel good, nostalgic music for me. And it's just always been like fun part of my life, like just memories of my parents playing it on New Year's Eve, loud in the house, my mom dancing around singing, probably drunk, who knows. Like I had a boat growing up. We used to go up and down the Illinois River like every weekend over the summer, and my dad always had AC/DC playing. And like, you know, my uncle is a massive AC/DC fan, and he's a drummer, and he would just do like everything, you know. It was just one of those nostalgic bands I grew up with. It's great memories that obviously I love, and so it's one of those bands that I've just always loved for, I think, a big part of that reason.
What about you, Alan?
Let's see. For me, first exposed to AC/DC, late intermediate, early high school. I vaguely remember some kids around like maybe 7th or 8th grade starting to pay attention to them. But that was also the kind of time, and again, growing up in the rural South, people started to notice the name because we were being told they were evil. I very specifically remember one of my friends being all wigged out about this band whose name stood for After Christ, Devil Comes.
That sounds sexy. Anyway.
Yeah, I was like, where are you going with this?
But so yeah, you know, so lots of kids were like, ooh, shouldn't listen to that. But then yeah, more like, 9th, 10th grade, people of course, got more into it. They were a very popular band with kids in my high school. It was the kind of thing we would play, on cheap boom boxes in the back of the school bus on field trips all the time. No telling how many times we played the Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap album, because you're 15 years old and he's saying big balls over and over. He. It's a big deal and very edgy when you're that age. So yeah, kind of like Mel said, just a very fun band, good musical chops. And you're right, Marty. I mean, there's nothing complicated about it. It's easy music to understand, easy to follow, easy to remember, but it still works incredibly well. And I think it's worth pointing out that, everybody has always commented that the Young brothers are both extremely good guitarists. They can do the fancy stuff when they want to. They can do the more intricate blues stuff and jazz stuff when they want to. It's just that's not what they do in AC/DC. There's a laundry list of, famous musicians who can have stories about, oh, we saw Angus just like, warming up, before a show one night, and he was playing this incredible, blues thing. We're just like, holy crap, we didn't know you played stuff like that. But yeah, they draw those influences in. They're not just a rock band. They listened to all kinds of stuff growing up. But when it came time to perform, they knew what they wanted to perform, and they stuck to it. And
thanks, Miss
yes,
A.
Thank you, Miss Anthropy. Appreciate that. Very kind of you. So yeah, through high school, they were a big deal for me. As I worked, through college, there was a point where I just kind of lost track of AC/DC. Yeah, I would hear a new album was coming out, but I was never in a rush to check it out. Some of them I heard. There were a couple I missed over the years that I've only checked out in the past few weeks. And yeah, like Melanie said, there are some ups and downs in the catalog, and we'll talk about those as we work through them tonight. I will say there are a couple of albums I don't like. Now, I think a couple of them are a little bit too flat or have other issues that I'm just like, nah, this one is not for me. But in general, yeah, a pretty consistent catalog. We'll probably see a pattern in terms of ranking. I think most people, like yourself, Marty, really gravitate towards the Bon Scott albums more than the Brian Johnson albums. But yeah, even that catalog, there's growth during that period. Those albums are not really all created equal when you start breaking them down a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see how everybody sort of ranks and compares things, from the different eras and even within the eras.
I will add to all of that too. Comparing the Bon Scott era to the Brian Johnson era, I think there's multiple zones in the Brian Johnson catalog, but for me, the Bon Scott era, it's the least produced. As they went, they started to get a little bit better production. But one thing that changed when Bon died was the energy. And I'm not saying that the energy died completely, but as it went on, especially in their later albums, it just the energy was produced out of them. The production, you listen to the guitar tone of the last three records, it is like, it doesn't sound like an old Marshall that has been in a million bars cranked up. It sounds like a Marshall plug-in, completely rounded off and smooth and made to shine, and it lacks something. It lacks that needed kick in the balls, I guess you could say.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, see what I did there. I'm learning from the best up there in the corner. But yeah, that's one thing I found. I think, AC/DC offers fun. They offer, a relief from, seriousness of life getting you down. It's just fun music to tap your toe along to. But and they don't have a lot to offer, but when you take that roughness, that rough and tumble edge out of their music, it makes it a little too pedestrian for me. But having said that, the albums still aren't bad. That's the thing. I just I'm listening. It could be any one of these albums. If I hadn't listened to AC/DC all week, if you were to throw on Rock or Bust, and I haven't heard AC/DC in 4 months, I'd be like, oh, this is kick ass. Cool. But having heard everything, I was like, oh my God. Oh, hey.
Start your homework earlier there, mister.
Yeah.
How I operate. Hey, Lee, thanks for the super chat, man. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Lee. But yeah, well, about time to get through some records. I've got to run and grab myself a beer. I mistakenly sat down without one, which was really dumb of me. So I'll be right back.
Alan needs a beer for this.
Everybody needs a beer for AC/DC.
I wish I had it. Yeah.
The one time I decided not to drink tonight, I think I got a little toasty in the last stream that we did. And I was drunk and then I was hungry, and so I was eating the whole time. And of course, first freaking comment on that video was, "Damn, Melanie, how big of a snack bag did you have?" That's like, son of a bitch. Of course, it's like, of course somebody noticed that.
Costco, their bags are bigger there. You got to go there. You got to go with what's delicious and cheap.
Yeah, I'm just one of those people where when I start getting drunk, I'm like, oh, I should probably eat something so I don't get a headache.
Right. Well, all right. Well, I guess there's a little confusion in this ranking thing. I thought when me and Alan were talking earlier today that we were also ranking TNT, so I ranked it, and
are we supposed to
rank my numbers off?
No, TNT you're supposed to rank. There's
you have to rank TNT.
There's two different high voltages.
Yeah, and this is something important before we get into any albums. As
it's so fucking
many
confusing.
Fans will know,
it's so stupid.
Especially for the earlier albums, you get into some weird alternate track lists from what was released in Australia versus other parts of the world. Because in some cases there were massive delays. Like Dirty Deeds, Done Dirt Cheap didn't get a U.S. pressing until 1981. The Atlantic Records passed hard on that album when they were offered it the first time. They did not want it in America. They didn't think it would sell worth crap. And so when it finally did come out, it doesn't have the same track list as it did when it was first pressed in Australia and other parts of the world. So there are going to be some issues where we might say a certain song's on an album, and if it throws people off a little bit and you're like, wait, what? That track's on that album? We may just be dealing with different pressings of things. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Marty, because I wanted to say that before we got into it so that folks don't get confused later on, because this first part of the catalog gets a little confusing. But Melanie, as always, we should let the guest begin. So do you want to walk us through the real high voltage?
The real high voltage. Wait, I thought we were ranking these.
Yeah, we are.
Right.
Okay.
We're going to go chronologically and just give numbers as we go.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay.
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 All right, yeah. Let's do it that way. That's okay.
All right. So I did this wrong.
Well, I rank both high voltage and TNT, so that's right then.
Yes.
Yes.
Because high voltage and TNT are basically the same record. They're just two different songs. Fuck me. It's so confusing. Whatever. I put them next to each other in the rankings.
What does your high voltage look like?
I don't own it. So yeah.
That's what Marty's probably thinking. Yeah.
Okay. So this is the US version.
Yeah.
That's the Australian version.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So
and these are very different track lists.
Yeah. So this is the one that I'm most familiar with for obvious reasons.
Sure.
It's the one that I knew and grew up with. So this is the one that I can talk to. I do know the Australian track listing as well. But for the longest time, I said that this was like a perfect record. Perfect record. It's really not at all.
No,
in fact, the production's pretty terrible on this album. And you can tell they're just young and really starting to try to find their style and their sound. But there's a lot of generic songs on this. I mean, if you really think about it, things that, like, It's a Long Way to Top.
Overplayed.
Yeah, that's one of those songs that I will gladly skip because it's overplayed, for sure. I don't hate it at all, but I think the fact that this was so overplayed in my life and just hearing it on the radio and everything, this definitely fell farther down the list than I expected it to, because I do love the Bon Scott era albums a lot. I think The Jack is probably my least favorite song, AC/DC song. Like, just, it's just something about that song that's kind of just missing something for me. I don't know. It's just repetitive. I don't know. I don't care for that song at all. But of course, She's Got Balls. That is Alan, same exact thing. Like, what is this song? It's so inappropriate. Like, I had it on in the car the other night when I was picking up my son, and he was just in the back, not even paying attention, on his phone. And all of a sudden, he like looks up and he's like, "Did they just say she's got balls?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And so he was laughing. He thought it was hilarious. I mean, some of these songs are kind of cheesy, that I hear them. So this album, I think, after like really going back and thinking about it, I have it at number 5 on my ranking. And I kind of felt bad about that because there's one album that I ranked higher than this, and people are probably going to be really fucking angry about it. But for the cheesiness of this, and just, it's not a perfect album now that I've like really sat down and thought about it. But yeah, in the Awesome Giants. Yeah, I don't know. There's U.S. people. What do you expect from us? But yeah, I'd be curious to hear what you think, Alan and Marty, because I know that you probably have way more to say about this than I do.
Alan, do you have more to say?
Well, again, I'm kind of thinking, so yeah, I'm working off this version, which was the original Australian press. This version of the album has never had a proper U.S. press.
No.
And the cover it's funny. I mean, this was a small kind of release at the time. Albert Productions, was a big deal in Australia. But again, this, was, a band, and even the members of the band have said after the fact that we probably released this too soon, that we were kind of in a hurry to get things going, pushing, and we probably needed a little more time to shore things up. but it still made some waves. The cover was still considered controversial. You know, the idea of having, you know, the little cartoon dog peeing on the cover was really like a kind of a bit of a shock. They're like, really? Don't know about that. So compare that to, like, you know, some of the covers we see from metal bands today. And, you know, this was like the Cannibal Corpse, you know, eaten back to life of 1974, 1975. Just to be clear, my press, it's not the original Albert. Mine's a 1977 press, so still an early one. The original has a kangaroo on the label. Mine has no kangaroo. I am ruleless. But this track list is pretty different from what Melanie just showed. The album that, yeah, most folks know as High Voltage is this one. There's only a couple of songs that overlap, though. The track list on this, I'll just read it off quickly for folks who may not be familiar with it. You know, it starts with, like, you know, the cover of Baby Please Don't Go, which is a track they played a ton in these early days. It has She's Got Balls, one of the better known tracks from it. Little Lover is on here. Stick Around. Side 2 has Soul Stripper, You Ain't Got a Hold on Me, Love Song, and
Crazy.
Show Business. That's your track list. Love Song is a mistake. That song is just not particularly good. It's a very long, drawn out, kind of laid back ballad. It sounds, there's almost nothing in the rest of the AC/DC catalog that sounds like it, and that's a good thing. That track didn't need to exist. This is, you know, album is AC/DC at their absolute bare bones simplest. Even by their standards, this album is very stripped down,
Very raw.
nothing ornate. Yes, pretty raw. I don't mind it. A big part of why I don't mind it is that it's rooted, like, you know, Marty alluded to earlier, it's rooted in a lot of, you know, basic blues, and it's rooted in a lot of 50s rock and roll, Chuck Berry, Little Richard kind of stuff. And I grew up listening to a lot of that stuff with my dad. So when I hear this, I know exactly what their influences were and what they were trying to emulate. So it works okay for me. But yeah, I have, you know, some sentimental attachment to the record. I do like several of the songs on it, but it has some misfires as well, as I pointed out. For me, I ranked this version 6th in their catalog, which probably is a bit high. But like I said, there's some sentimental attachment to this, and I can connect with the kind of influences they're very blatantly wearing on their sleeves this early on with High Voltage. So Melanie has the US version ranked 5th. I have the Australian version ranked 6th. And Marty, your take on AC/DC's inaugural album.
Well, I thought I had this on vinyl. I don't have it. I had a CDR of it that we used to listen to all the time at work, old work there. But I've been listening to whatever's on Apple Music here, which is the US version. So you start off with It's a Long Way to the Top If You Want to Rock and Roll, which was a staple on Northern Michigan Rock Radio. I like the song. I like the energy of it. There's a fun spirit here that kind of permeates the Bon era. You just sound like a guy you'd like to drink with. But I'm pretty burnt out on that song. Rock and Roll Singer's okay. I never liked the Jack. I like the Jack less with Brian. I hate Brian Johnson's version of the Jack. He turns it around into more of a sexual thing, which is kind of innuendo type. I don't know. I don't like the Brian Johnson version of it. But that song's kind of shot. I do like Live Wire. TNT's another overplayed track. I really like Can I Sit Next to You, Girl? I don't know what.
Yeah.
Something about that song is just a really good song. Little Lover's got a good kind of feel to it. She's Got Balls is silly. High Voltage, great way to end the record. But again, a little overplayed. And because of all of this, just a couple, you know, some of the deep cuts aren't the best, but there's some really good songs on here. And even the hits are good songs, so I'm just tired of them. It ended up on number 7 on my list. But I got to say, this right away, it's pretty quick to judge that Bon Scott is kind of a special force in this band. Like it sounds like a blues-based rock band that you would see at a bar. And then you put a special charismatic singer at the helm of it, it changes the paradigm a bit. It shifts it to something a little bit more special. And the fact that he could hold his own live, and I've gone through spells where I would watch some old concerts of them. There's times where he's just kind of standing back and Angus is just running around like a maniac, which, he's trying to usurp the frontman spot away from Bon, but Bon held his own. He was fine with letting Angus do his thing and contributing to the stage show, I suppose. But
yeah. The two of them actually played off of each other quite a bit.
Yeah.
In the very earliest days, Angus was actually pretty reserved on stage. He kind of hung in the back and didn't goof around too much. But when Bon joined, and they did have, vocalists before Bon, he wasn't, like an original member. Those two really became a two-man act. So yeah, I don't think there was a competition between them so much as they fed off of each other's energy. That Bon could go out there, really work the crowd quite well, and then when Angus, had the chance, when it was his turn to lead, absolutely, he got more and more wild, and really started to adopt, that stage persona. They had a very set routine of Bon picking Angus up on his shoulders and walking out into the crowd while Angus would solo, and this is pre-wireless gear. To make this work, they were having to roadies were having to keep basically stretching out these insanely long cables for Angus to stay plugged in while Bon's walking all over the frickin' place carrying him around. Angus, as a result of this, Angus was one of the real early adopters of wireless technology for a guitar, so that he could finally move around and not have, hundreds of feet worth of cable that it was tripping everybody up the whole time. So yeah, they did, really well and kind of brought out the best in each other in terms of showmanship.
So that was High Voltage, their debut album. It came out in Australia in 1975. It was released internationally in 1976. And also in 1975 comes the album TNT.
Which is High Voltage.
High Voltage with couple different tracks.
Yeah. I pretty much had a hard time ranking this because it's only varied so much. So I pretty much already said what I had to say about some of the songs. Like, the Jack is on it. I can't stand that song.
Not a fan of the Jack.
Yeah. It's a long way to top. Like I said, it's just overplayed. Still a great song. I love the song Livewire.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been a huge fan of that song. TNT I think is one of the greatest AC/DC songs to this day. Heavily overplayed for sure. But I love that song. It's just so catchy. It's so fun. It gets me so amped up. And I love Can I Sit Next to You, Girl? I love that song. That's one of my favorite AC/DC songs. And then they have a Chuck Berry song on here, School Days.
Which I did not like. I just didn't like it.
It's not for everybody. I admit, I kind of hate. I'm glad it's the last track on the album. I'll give you that. If they had put that in the middle of the album, I'd been like, what the hell? But I rank this pretty much the same as High Voltage for that reason. It was hard for me. I guess you could say it really tie one or the other. I don't know. Maybe TNT slightly. But yeah, it was. I had a really hard time, just trying to figure that out. Similar to Marty.
I'm going back. I was talking to Alan. Like, this makes no sense. Why is the track listing almost? Are we ranking this? You're like, yeah. I'm like, oh man, it doesn't make any sense. Anyway, but we got her. So, we figured it out.
I don't know, 6. What did I say? High Voltage was 5, 6. I literally have it High Voltage / TNT in my ranking, so
it makes sense, with those versions.
All right, Alan, your thoughts?
Okay, so again, I'm working off the Australian versions. So this is what TNT looked like, when it came out as its own album, which again never really had a U.S. release, which leads to a lot of the confusion. So a lot of the songs that y'all read off from the U.S. pressing of High Voltage, this is where they actually originally came out. It was on the second album. So the track list for this one starts with It's a Long Way to the Top, which fun song, but overplayed. Funnily enough, it was also a song that Bon quickly hated playing live because, he learned to do the bagpipe part, the bagpipes are not an easy instrument to play, and they get messed up very easily. So yeah,
It's like an accordion. It's like the devil's instruments. They make no sense.
it absolutely drove him nuts. His bagpipes were damaged at a show, I think, in Scotland, and he basically decided, "Fuck it, don't even bother fixing them. I'm done with this thing." So that's why that kind of fell out of the Bond track list for a while. But after that, you've got Rock and Roll Singer, not a bad track. The Jack, you guys aren't fun. You don't know how to have fun. The Jack is a great song. This is Bon Scott at his lyrical best.
Yeah.
When he's doing it's not really double entendre. It's like 1.5 entendre.
Yeah.
But yes, very cleverly done, very fun. It's a slow song. And yes, Brian Johnson, does the version where, it's, much more explicit.
Sexy time. Yeah.
Which is, it's fun from time to time. I'd rather hear the original, but I don't mind Johnson's version from time to time. Livewire is on here. Again, very simple, straightforward song, but very effective. Same for TNT. Rocker is on here. That's one of my favorite songs from their early catalog that doesn't always get a ton of attention. Can I Sit Next to You, Girl? Yep, that's a fun song. High Voltage, very recognizable. And the Chuck Berry cover, School Days. It is not my favorite Chuck Berry song. I've listened to a lot of Chuck Berry in my life. I love the guy's stuff. By the time I was 10 years old, I could sing along to several entire Chuck Berry albums. School Days is not the song I would have picked to cover had I been AC/DC. There's a lot of great ones.
Well, they picked it because of the schoolboy thing. I'm sure that's played in.
Might have been. Don't know. Yeah. But regardless, they probably could have picked a better one. But I can't hate it because I spent so much time as a kid listening to Chuck Berry. So this is a big step up in terms of songwriting. Again, the original High Voltage, the band is just sort of working the bugs out a bit. But here it feels like they really have started to figure out what they want to sound like, and it's coming together. Again, Bond's lyrics are all, you're really starting to see the individual personalities become what they were going to. I love TNT, and definitely a big step up from High Voltage. I rank TNT third in the AC/DC discography. It's got a lot of classic tracks, and yes, some of them have been played a ton. I get it if people are sick of some of those songs, but I still think as a total package, it's a great example of the band, starting to really hit their stride on album number 2. So I really like it, and we'll rank TNT as number 3. So then pass over to you, Marty, for your thoughts. Oh, sorry, Marty.
Yeah.
To show too. Again, mine is not the original first press. It's a slightly later Albert pressing with the red and the gold.
Noob.
Collector geeks out there.
Nope, only OG. Come on, Alan.
I'm sure Metal Field version has those.
To be very clear, I got these older Australian ones years and years ago before vinyl prices got so insane. Early and mid 2010s, you could get these things for pretty reasonable prices. And I was fortunate enough to get some of them, not all of them, but I got decent pressings of some. But sorry, just wanted to point it out for the collectors.
Well, I ranked High Voltage as 7. I put TNT as 8. It's almost the same album, a couple different tracks. I disliked the School Days cover. Didn't think it was necessary, so it got knocked down, but it's still in the top 10 because of Bon Scott, his performance on here. And I have really very little to add to it because we've already essentially talked about it with High Voltage. But let's get to 1976, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap.
Yeah. So I used to really hate the song Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. I don't know why. Maybe I just heard it way too much growing up. Like, that was a song that also gets really overplayed. But as I got older and really started getting into AC/DC, I really love this album. Everything about it is phenomenal. I love Problem Child. That's one of my favorite songs on here. I think the whole entire B side of this, from Squealer, Big Balls, Rock in Peace, Ride On and then Jailbreak. Like just not a single song on here is a skip for me at all. And this is definitely one of the albums that when I was, because it had been a while since I listened to this. When I re-listened to it the last couple of weeks, I found myself like not really wanting to go past this and just keep listening to this. And then a couple albums after that, I had to like build myself up into the Brian Johnson stuff because this album just makes me so nostalgic and so happy because it's definitely one of those albums that I grew up hearing all the time. So I actually have this ranked as my number 5 album, so pretty high up there. There's a couple that go ahead of it that I end up loving more, but again, some of my favorite songs on here. The international version also has this again, Marty. There's an international version.
I know, stupid.
What is it? Rocker? Is it? That's So I have both the versions.
That is on what's on Apple Music is Rocker.
Yeah, it's Rocker. Yeah, so I love that song too. So I have the CD in international, and then I have the vinyl. And that I don't know. I have it pulled, but I have mine ranked the way they're supposed to go. So, but yeah, I number 5, but that's because there's other albums that I ended up really falling in love with as I got into the band.
All right, Alan.
All right, so yeah, album number 3. And this is the version most folks are going to be familiar with, the international version. And again, this didn't get pressed in the United States until after Back in Black had already broken insanely big. The band had a contract with Atlantic in Europe by this point, and their head guy in Europe was pushing the band. He was really trying to get the US branch of Atlantic Records to pick them up and do something with them, and they were not having it. The guy in charge of Atlantic in the US was just like, no, don't want that, can't sell that, it's going nowhere. If it had been up to him, the band would never have been signed. So yeah, it wasn't until Back in Black had sold millions and millions and millions of copies. They were like, "Hey, you guys got anything else we can release real quick to highlight your talent?" It was actually a bit of an issue because, of course, the band at that point thought it was insane to release a Bon Scott album when Bon was already dead and they were actively touring with Brian Johnson. So it was a bit of an issue in terms of getting this put out in '81. Back in the day, this is what you got if you were in other territories. One of the really wild cover arts. Yeah. You've got Bon and an artist who does not understand the concept of perspective. But you get the Dirty Deeds tattoo way up front there. You get Angus hanging out there in the back, waving.
Pissed off. No, he's
we'll go with waving. He could be happy. You don't know.
Can I ask you, that other cover, is that the same guy that did the UFO covers? Is that
yes, this is Hypnosis Productions. Yep.
It looks like it. 100% characteristic of it.
It very much does. Yeah, a lot of the Pink Floyd and UFO covers. Yep. Good eye, Marty. Yep. Absolutely. But yeah, so what do we get on Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap? You, of course, get the classic title song, which was one of the first songs that got the band in trouble because when he rattles off the phone number to call, well, gee, guess what people started doing? They started dialing that number, and Albert's Productions had to kind of make nice with the unfortunate lady who had that number. And the really weird thing is it's not a phone number. It's actually a set of woman's measurements. It's supposed to break down as 3 two-digit numbers. But the way he rattles it off, it feels more like a phone number. And it sounds like he's saying, like, call me. And then there's the number. And people assumed it was a phone number when it was never meant to be. Because, yeah, they're like, hey, Bon, we're getting in trouble over the phone number you put in the song. He's like, what are you fucking talking about? There's no phone number in the song. Yeah, that was a thing. And it would come back and bite the band a second time when it got pressed in the US, because guess what? A bunch of mouth-breathing yahoos started doing that time too. They started calling the phone number. People, gotta love them. But yes, the title track is great. On this version, you have a track called Ain't No Fun. which I don't think ever showed up on any of the US pressings. There's going to be some rockin', a little bit more, again, really showing that 50s, rock influence. Problem Child, which it has always been one of my favorites from this era. Second side, Squealer, Big Balls, which, yes, our poor band teacher, there's no telling how many times he heard that on band field trips. The Rock and Peace song, Ride On, and Jailbreak. So really good track list. Does differ a little bit from what you get on the international version. That one does Dirty Deeds, Love at First Feel, Big Balls, Rocker, a really good version of Problem Child. There's going to be some rocking. Then the Ain't No Fun Waiting Around to Be a Millionaire. Oh, sorry, I said that wasn't on other things. Yeah, brain fart. Obviously it is. And then Ride On and Squealer. So yeah, a little different track list. Things mixed up. Not as drastic a difference as the High Voltage ones, though. Dirty Deeds done dirt cheap for me. Another album that there's a lot of sentimentality connected to because of all those plays on the back of the bus in high school and stuff. I rank it as my second favorite AC/DC album. I can still go back to this one and play it and enjoy most of the tracks, even though I've heard them so many times. This is, kind of prime, fun Bon Scott at his best. So number 2 for the Dirty Deeds done dirt cheap for me. Marty, where do you rank this one?
I gotta say, this is one of those albums where it's got Big Balls on it, which I always thought that was stupid. Funny, stupid. But for me, the highlight of this album is Ride On. I love. It really shows that Bon is a hell of a singer, and you can really feel a sadness in his voice and in that song. It's a pseudo ballad, just pretty simplistic bones to that song. It really puts Bon to the forefront and show off what he can do. It's a very soulful, sad song. I love it. Great song.
Yep.
Ain't No Fun Waiting Around to Be a Millionaire is another favorite on here. Squealer's good. Problem Child's a rocker. I really like this record. Dirty Deeds is a bit overplayed, but you know what? It's still a pretty good song. It's different. It's kooky. It's not Big Balls kooky, but there's a good spirit on this record. It rocks pretty hard. I'm giving it a 6, better than High Voltage and TNT for sure. Which leads it, but yeah, Ride On. Oh my God, what a song! It's just a well-written, soulful, good song.
Yeah, it really does show off that, like you're saying, Bon wasn't just about writing kind of naughty lyrics. That he could do something that had a lot more soul to it.
Yep. And that leads us to 1977's Let There Be Rock. I actually own that one too, Mel.
I love this album. Love it.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I always loved this album cover. It's just such a simple live picture.
Mm-hmm.
And in like what looks like it's a painting form, but it's actually just a picture that's been stylized. I don't know. That always stood out to me. And then the back, so classic. Everything about this album to me is perfect. I think that they finally really hit their stride on this album, in my opinion.
I agree.
Doggy Dog is still one of my all-time favorite AC/DC songs. I don't ever get tired of it. And it's this is definitely one of those albums where they really started that classic rock and blues that they start incorporating. There's a lot of influences of that just around the guitar writing and those types of things. Again, I think they really truly started to find their identity on this and in what is going to be ages of their sound coming up. But I mean, some of my absolute favorite songs on here, obviously, title track Let There Be Rock. God, I love that song. Hell Ain't a Bad Place to Be, which was oh my God, I can't believe they have a song that was named that, because people thought they were such an evil band, and then here they come with a song called that. Whole Lotta Rosie, I love that song.
It's such a great fucking song.
Yeah, that it's such a good song. And I have a niece now that's named Rosie, so every time I hear it, I always think about her, just for that reason. But yeah, I mean, it's Bad Boy Boogie. Like, again, I can see why people might not care too much for that song, but I
I
love
love that.
it.
It's got a great
Yeah.
feel to it. A great
Yeah,
bluesy
it makes me
swagger.
just so happy, and it's just
Yep.
definitely, you know, I was raised on blues and jazz, and so it's got that like sound to it that just really, again, that holds that nostalgia to me. So yeah, I have this as my number 3 favorite album. So yeah, I love this album, and again, probably one that I spun the most these last couple of weeks just because of how much I love it. So great album.
All right, Alan.
All right. So, yep. Switching most now. My originals are done. So, yeah, just CD pressings for some of the other stuff. I had this on vinyl, but it was a cheap press. So it was not in good shape. So at some point, I probably gave it away. Yeah, Melanie, you're absolutely right. This album sees the band start to mature a bit. The production is better. You know, they're putting more thought into the songs. A lot of the songs slightly longer. You know, everything's coming together a little tighter compositionally. And that was all very intentional. By this point, the band is, you know, already been touring in the UK and parts of Europe. So they've really got their eye on improving to keep momentum. Again, they're working under the tutelage of, you know, their older brother George, who'd already, you know, he's been there and done that. His band, you know, went through those UK and European tours. He understood what it was going to take to break the band in those territories. He's like, yeah, it's great. You guys have conquered Australia. Good for you. That won't mean shit if you can't take it to the next level. And to do that, you've got to improve the sound. It's got to be better. You can't just stay where you're at. And so, yeah, they put a lot of work into Let There Be Rock, trying to make sure they could move to that next level. Something else you have to keep in mind, too, is what's happening in the just general rock world and music world at this point. You know, Let There Be Rock comes out, you know, in 77. And so you're trying to tour this in the UK in 1977. What are you up against? Punk.
Oh, punk. I didn't even think about that.
And AC/DC was actually a lot of times getting lumped in with the punk bands when they were getting write-ups and, like, you know, New Musical Express and, you know, those other weekly publications. AC/DC was being lumped in with punks. Obviously, it seems ludicrous to us now that music has little to nothing to do with punk at all. But it was more the kind of attitude thing.
There's an attitude, yeah.
This band was, you know, very much about attitude. That was, you know, always one of the central things with AC/DC. You know, they're relatively small guys in terms of physical stature, but they were never intimidated by anything. They would get up in the face of any motherfucker who pissed them off or said an unkind thing about them. You know, they famously at one like album review release party were going around actively trying to find one particular guy from, I think, the British music press who had given them kind of a lukewarm review. They were just going up to people like, hey, are you this motherfucker? No, you're not. Where is he? He didn't show, but they spent the whole night trying to corner this one guy who had given them kind of a half-assed review. Yeah, they did not take shit from anybody for anything. And so, yeah, that attitude got them lumped in with punk, which they weren't really that interested in. Yeah, they were on record as saying, that's sure, whatever. That doesn't really seem like that's not our thing. That's not what we're doing. So they're having to fight that label. They're having to fight that entire musical explosion. That was not a good time to be a rock band in the UK. Much less an Australian rock band trying to tour the UK. Ask Steve Harris how easy it was to get gigs as a rock band in the UK in like 76, 77. Wasn't happening. But that's where they were at in their career. They figured we have to break those territories first. We've got a little bit of backing there from our label. Let's work on that first. America will come later. So yeah, they put out, you know, a better album, stronger album. And all that said, I respect the album. It's my least favorite of the Bon Scott era albums. I've never really like worshipped at the altar of this one as hard as most folks do. there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's not like I'm giving it a thumbs down, but when you're ranking things, something comes in last. And among the Bon Scott AC/DC albums, this is last for me. Go Down is a good opener. I really like that. It starts the album strong. But Dog Eat Dog is not one for me. It's cool that you like it, Melanie. For me, the song just always feels too repetitive and choppy. I cannot get into that one. Let There Be Rock is great, but it's overplayed.
Yeah.
Bad Boy Boogie, I'm not into.
Good riffs on that song. I like that song.
It's okay, I guess.
You're not down with the boogie.
I'm really not down with this particular boogie. Yeah, that may be bad, but this boy don't boogie. Problem Child I like, but I like the version on Dirty Deeds much, much better than this one. On Dirty Deeds, again, that is a rawer, more frantic sound. On here, they're trying to edge away from that a little bit. And I think that song suffers in this version. Overdoses, okay. Hell Ain't a Bad Place to Be. It's not a personal favorite. And a whole lot of Rosie, of course, is one of their signature songs. It's fun. Everybody knows the legend behind that one. But yeah, so I mean, at the end of the day, it's like there's not a lot of tracks on here that rank, really high for me personally. I get that, yeah, it's an important album for them. It's a very beloved album for many fans. It's just not the Bon Scott album for me, and I'm okay with that. So I ranked it. I think that means it comes in 8th. Let me check. Yeah, I've got it ranked as number 8 on my list. Sorry to talk about it for a long time there, but Marty, pass it on over to you. What do you think of Let There Be Rock?
You mentioned punk in 1977, and the first thing that comes, and you mentioned UK punk, the first thing that comes to mind, I believe, Nevermind the Bollocks came out in 77 from the Sex Pistols. And if you listen to that record and you listen to this record, I don't know, I hear a bit of kinship musically there, because if Nevermind the Bollocks, what really separates that from being punk and being a rock record, and it is basically the fashion. That's it. It really is. If you listen to the riffs, it's a lot of Steve Jones and Glenn Matlock at the time. They wrote it's charged up rock music. It just is.
They draw on a lot of the same influences.
A lot of the same influences, and it's just traditional rock with blues scales at its core. So really, if you were to put Sex Pistols and AC/DC on tour during this era, I think that would have been an excellent fit. Although the crowd would have probably killed each other. But yeah, for me, this is my number 3. I look at this track listing, and we've already kind of gone over it, but Bad Boy Boogie, great riffs, Go Down, awesome opener. Problem Child, it's been in their catalog before, but it's still a great song. Hell Ain't a Bad Place to Be, great. Whole Lot of Rosie. First time I really heard that song was the Omen cover. Y'all remember Omen covering Whole Lot of Rosie on the Nightmares EP, 12-inch?
Oh, I completely forgot about that.
Wow. Yeah.
That was the first time I heard that.
With this one, I always think of the Let There Be Rock cover by Onslaught during the Steve Grimmett era. So I forgot all about the cover.
All right, I got to go back and listen to these. I haven't thought about those in years.
Yep.
You can pass on the Onslaught cover. It doesn't. You don't need to spend time on that.
Yeah, the Omen Nightmares EP came out before or after their third album, The Curse. Great. It's fun, pseudo live in the studio type fake crowd noise and stuff. But, just a whole lot of Rosie. There's so much charm in that song just for the fact that he's the everyman. She ain't exactly pretty. She ain't exactly small, but you could say she's got it all. I mean, he's just speaking from the heart. That doesn't need to be made up, bouffant hair, plastered on makeup ladies to love. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's just, I just think he is such a genius he didn't give a shit. He spoke from the heart, and you could just relate to the guy. You know what I'm saying?
I think there's a story where he obviously was a womanizer. So that's
sure.
not
not great.
But apparently, I guess there's a rumor that there's a lot of kids out there that we may not have known about that he had with women at the same time. I just remember reading that.
Rock and roll lifestyle.
Rock and roll. You
can cut and paste that story to every band. Motorhead, right. Kiss, you name all those bands. They all had their time.
It very much was a thing on the even the early just Australian scene before they started to become big international stars. In one of the, I think it's in this one, the Engelbert sort of biography of the band. They talk about that early on in Australia. There was this kind of scene of groupies. There's like a subset of groupies, and their whole thing was to get pregnant from rock stars. Not because, and again, this is long before they were like any kind of actual big money making rock stars. They were a hot thing in Australia. And that, yeah, they would, women were hooking up with them specifically to get pregnant. And I think it's Angus mentions at some point that, they're just after a show or going someplace and bump into some woman and they're talking a bunch. She's like, oh, yeah, and I'm having Bond's baby. And it's like, oh, I didn't know you were engaged. And like, oh, we're not seeing each other. And they're both perfectly cool. The woman's just like, I have no intention of seeing him again. We bumped into each other. That's fine. He knocked me up. That's what I wanted. So yeah, it was definitely a weird kind of thing that was part of the scene for at least a period of time there. So there's at least a few Bond Juniors out there that everybody was. That was the goal of the evening. Fun facts.
Fun facts.
They can no longer get pregnant.
All right. We're going to 1978 with Powerage.
Yeah, this is okay. So I'll say up. This is my number one AC/DC album.
Mine too. We're cheating off the papers again.
This has, I even wrote notes for it because I had so much to say about it. It's
awesome.
It's definitely a darker album than they had put out in previous years. It's got more of a harder, bluesier sound into here, a little bit grittier in terms of the songs. It's more realism and more like working class struggle, songwriting that they do in here for the lyrical themes. It's a more grounded, a little bit more moodier album. I would say almost a little bit more personal, in my opinion, that they've done. A little bit darker tone. Again, it's really soaked in this groove and rawness and grit to it that really is just a blues soaked heart of what AC/DC really truly is. I think it's some of their best songwriting for that reason. I absolutely love this album. I don't ever get sick of it. It's soulful. It's electrifying. No pun intending.
You intended
it. The amps, you can just the guitars and the amps just go through my body. It's almost like an experience that I have whenever I hear this. And I think that's just because it's really the first AC/DC album that I truly, really fell in love with. The first song that I ever really loved was Down Payment Blues.
Love that song. Best song on the album.
I love that song.
Yep.
It's such an amazing song. One of the longer songs too. And just really has got that bluesiness. There's definitely just a bluesiness to this album that you hear in that they just do so well. So fun little fact, I guess there was a European version of this put out where the mix was different.
Yep.
And they changed some of the fade outs and fade ins, and Down Payment Blues, I was reading, was excluded from that version. But this US Australian version is the standard now. So I thought that'd be interesting. So there we go with AC/DC with their different versions, but just look at that. But yeah, this is my number one. I just love it. It's raw, it's soulful, and again, electrifying, like I said, grittier. I think honestly, probably some of the more deeper cut AC/DC songs too. With not as many number one hits that you were used to hearing from their past albums. So I don't know, maybe I just had to go with the not popular one. But yeah, interested to see what your take is on this, Alan.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate you, man.
Cheers, Mike.
Thank you
Mike.
so much.
Thank you very much.
Alan,
But yeah, I agree with pretty much everything Melanie said about this one. And lots of folks in the chat giving this one a lot of love too. This is my number one as well. So yeah, that's a clean sweep for number one across everyone tonight. Funny things with this one, it's another one that never really had a proper US pressing. Even here on album number 5, the band wasn't making inroads to the US just yet. There was talk. They were looking into some US tours around this point. It wasn't quite happening. And again, the band understood that was going to be a hard market to crack. Mid and late 70s, you didn't have a lot of high octane rock and roll doing well in the US. The early 70s and into the mid 70s, it's the Eagles, it's the Captain and Tennille. That's what's getting played on the record. Yeah, the PMC wanted to hunt down something evil. Why didn't they hunt down the Captain and Tennille? Both of them needed to go. But yeah, so AC/DC just, they bided their time. They put out another fantastic record. But yeah, this one's always been a bit overlooked. And I think you're right, Melanie. I think the fact that it doesn't have the songs that have been played to death is a big draw for why people love this one so much, in this day and age. For me, it's just front to back an amazing track list. Rock and Roll Damnation is a great way to open the album. Down Payment Blues, yes, is fabulous. Love Bond's lyrical poetry in that one is fantastic. Awesome. Yep. Let's see. Give Me a Bullet is good. Riff Raff is quite good. Sin City is one of the songs that's better known from this album.
That's the one that's overplayed for me.
And see, I never hear that song played, so it's
Brian Johnson went on to do that a bunch too. They play that a lot with him. I don't know.
Yeah, let's see. What's Next to the Moon is maybe my favorite. Great lyrics to that. Gone Shootin' was a single at the time. Fun song. Up to My Neck and Kicked in the Teeth. Yeah, great ways to close the album. It's a funny track list because I think if you showed this to just like your quote unquote casual AC/DC fan, they wouldn't know many, if any, of these songs. For whatever reason, nothing from the Powerage track list ever became the AC/DC staple songs. As we've talked about, the albums before this have songs that have endured the whole time. The albums we're about to get to have tracks that, they're on every Cadillac commercial and every, football quarter, timeout, unimaginable. Nothing from Powerage ever seeped into the pop culture, constants like that. I'm not really sure why, but it kind of became the forgotten album. Pre-internet, this was a little bit of a hard album to find out about. I knew, for example, from a vinyl collector that I knew as a teenager, that, Gone Shootin' and Sin City were a couple of his favorite AC/DC songs. I could never find out what the hell they had been released on. For a while, I thought they were single-only tracks, that they were like B-sides or something, because I couldn't find the album. I eventually found this like in the import section of a small record store. I was looking, I was like, oh, there they are. I don't know what this is, but this must be the album they're from. So yeah, I bought this CD, had to pay the import CD price, but there was no way I was letting go of it because it was the first time I'd seen those songs on something. And when I started, showing it, to, other, co-workers and friends and stuff, who were really into AC/DC. One guy I worked with at Burger King at the time, he's like, I have every AC/DC. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. What do you think of Powerage? He's like, Power what? I showed him this and, his jaw dropped. He's just like, what the fuck is that? I'm like, it's their 5th album, came out after Let There Be Rock and before the next one. He's like, he just stared blankly at me. He's like, can I borrow it? I'd never seen it. So yeah, fantastic record, great track list. I've babbled enough about it. But yeah, it's always interested me that none of the songs on here would, if AC/DC released, a 2 CD set tomorrow, like AC/DC's greatest all-time, best-known, most loved songs, I don't know if a single song on Powerage would be on it. And I'm quite okay with that. It's just strange because it's such an awesome album.
Right on.
Marty, you've also got it number 1. What would what you want to shout out here for it?
First of all, I always love this band photo.
Yeah. It's
Look
awesome.
at Malcolm over here. He looks like the Hobbit in the Shire that all the other hobbits went to buy their pipe weed. He has totally got the hookup on the pipe weed. But this album, man, is there a better riff in rock than Riff Raff? Holy shit, what a riff.
That one slays. Yep.
Give me a bullet to buy it on. Great song. Down Payment Blues, again, the whole lamenting, rock and roller, but you don't have money, you're broke, you're hard on your luck. Got the lady sitting in the front of the Cadillac. You can't afford the gas.
She's looking like a wet dream.
Looking like a wet dream.
Cadillac, and I can't afford the gasoline.
Yep. Rock and Roll Damnation. What
Love
an
that
awesome
line.
start. Kicked in the God. This is pinnacle AC/DC for me, and it's really a culmination too. You can tell that they're building leading up. There's a way a good band should. I mean, nowadays it just seems like people's talent, the younger generation, they've evolved on this YouTube culture. You watch guitar players online, they all can shred. All these bands that are coming out, in the death metal or the thrash or the black, they're all at least really good. That doesn't mean they're doing anything necessarily special, but they start off at such a high caliber of musicianship already. Here, this is a band, you could tell they've been busting their ass. They've been playing as many shows as they can, wherever they can. They're honing their craft. Yeah, they're just playing blues-based rock, but everything's starting to really congeal here. They're getting more aggressive. You listen to that song Riff Raff. It's a ripper. That's an absolute ripping song. And the whole album is just a well-paced. It's got a lot of different swings of emotion. Someone in the chat mentioned it being a darker album. Agreed. 100% agree.
Yep.
And I guess, where do you go from here? They went where they needed to go next. But this is my number one. This is 1978. What an amazing album. Never gets old. I never get tired of it. Love the songs. I love the production. I love everything about this one. And that brings us up next to 1979's Highway to Hell, Bon Scott's final album with the band.
Yep.
Melanie.
So, again, another one of my all-time favorite albums.
This is a great album too. This used to be my favorite, but it's changed over the years.
Definitely, Highway to Hell, one of the most known AC/DC songs. Definitely, probably one of the more overplayed ones, but still just a phenomenal track on here. If You Want Blood, You've Got It. Oh, I love that song. Yeah. Honestly, I really love this album. I have this at my number 2, so I'll just say that.
Damn it, me too.
Yeah.
Cheat on the paper.
They feel alive on this album. Like, you can tell that they're clicking, they're firing on all cylinders, they're having fun, they're writing great music, and they're totally in sync, which is really sad to think about, considering this was Bon Scott's last album. And they really just Girls Got Rhythm. Again, that's another one that's
great song.
Tracks. Yeah. But it's, it's a very, there's almost like a simplification to this album. It's simple and it's like perfect and it's just unstoppable. Like, I feel like a lot of people will say this is one of their favorite AC/DC albums. The guitars just sound massive on it. Definitely just has a great rhythm section to it. It really honestly just drives like a freight train. Like, it really is a freight train. This is a straight up perfect rock album. And probably one of the more popular AC/DC albums that I love so much. So yeah, I have this at number 2. I think, Alan, you're probably going to have a lot to say about this too. But again, it's so hard not to say things that people already know because it's just such a well-known album. Also, I do love this album cover too. Yeah. He's gotten out of the Hobbit look now. He's kind of looking more like Metallica a little bit in this picture now.
Lars Ulrich on a bad day.
Yeah.
All right. Alan.
Yep. So Highway to Hell, one of the real iconic albums. I guess it's the Australian press, but there's one press where the band is kind of like wreathed in flames, which looks really cool, but it was removed from most pressings in other territories. And a goofy thing with that too. It was the guys in AC/DC had actually kind of become friends with the guys in Leonard Skinner while touring in the US a bit, and actually had a chance to fly with them from one date to another and passed. It wasn't that flight. A couple of months later, the Leonard Skinner, of course, their plane would crash, hit the band really hard. AC/DC was like, oh, wow, we were like drinking and partying with those guys, and now this happened. This is the album where they really do start to break, into more territories.
He's got the Confederate flag belt buckle here in this.
Oh, go ahead, blow it up, Melanie. Marty, can you blow it, Melanie?
I have a feeling that he was paying homage to
Yep,
to
probably.
them. Yeah.
With the Skinner guys, that would very much make
Bond's
sense.
paint on pants were kind of like the sixth member of the band for, well, I don't know, maybe it wasn't the pants, it was the sixth member of the band. Maybe it was something else. How'd you get the beans above the Frank? Anyway.
But the track list is extremely well known. I won't go through it song by song. Great set of songs. My only complaint about this album and why I don't rank it quite as high as you and Marty, I'm not the biggest fan of the Muttlange production. I feel like it's a little clean and takes away a little bit of that rough and raw element from the band.
He's not on this. Oh,
What?
yeah. Wait.
Yes.
It is.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. I was looking at the
yeah.
engineer. I was looking at the engineer, not the producer.
I don't think he was the original. If I remember right, he wasn't the original guy they had lined up to do it. But yeah, they had switched to him. And I understand why they did it. Again, this was a band on a mission, from day one. That they were out to conquer the world, and they needed that production to get the airplay across the United States to really help them, again, just level up. They weren't going to get it with, the production they had on Dirty Deeds, Done Dirt Cheap, or the production they had on Powerage. As much as I love the album, they needed something that sounded a bit more palatable for American rock radio at the tail end of the 70s. And that's what Muttlange gave them. And that's what they needed. So fair enough. For me, I always feel like I want this album to sound a little bit dirtier. And it doesn't. And so it goes. Personal favorites. Geez, it's a good track list. It's an incredibly good track list. Everything. I love the opening stanza to Shot Down in Flames. She told me to go to hell. Let's see. One I like a lot on here, and another track that ended up getting them in trouble that people forget about, the closer, Night Prowler. Slower song, kind of a creepy song.
It's creepy. It's got a swagger.
It has a swagger to it, and it became an issue for them because the album and the song in particular became favorites of one Richard Ramirez, who some folks may not know. The Night, became known as the Night Stalker for killing 15 people in Los Angeles and San Francisco, 1984, 1985. And he became Night Stalker because just a reporter messed up when he was copying it and printing it. They knew that Ramirez was into the song Night Prowler by AC/DC. Ramirez's nickname was supposed to have been the Night Prowler, but when they ran the story in the newspaper, they put Night Stalker. So Ramirez became known as the Night Stalker. And so they were that close to having their song be basically the media's label for, a notorious serial killer in the mid-'80s. But nevertheless, that connection was made. And there were a couple of other really, nefarious arrests made where people were wearing AC/DC paraphernalia. AC/DC was one of those bands that really kind of started firing up the PMRC machine in the mid and late 80s. And again, it seems ridiculous now because, there's a few, like we said, there are some songs that are kind of, naughty, dirty and stuff. But the connections, it was enough. And the connections with Ramirez and some of the other, arrests, it was enough that this became one of the poster children for, parental censorship in the mid and late 80s. Like I said at the start of the show, this is where kids were being told, don't listen to this. It stands for After Christ, Devil Comes. Bad stuff. But fantastic, iconic record. I ranked it at number I think I put it number 5. Let me double check that. Yes, I've got it number 5. I've already used 1, 2, and 3, so I mean there wasn't much. I couldn't rank it much higher. Yeah, I've got it ranked 5th. Great album. If it had a rougher edge to the production, I'd probably have it higher than that even. Marty, your turn, sir.
My number 2. And I gotta say, I'm a fan of the Mutt Lange production. I love
cool.
his work here. I love High and Dry, Pyromania. He just had a good ear for those big boomy drums, and the guitars are sharp. He doesn't smooth all of the edge out of the guitar tone, but he makes it big. You could tell they were trying to go for the American audience. It is a big sounding rock record, but man, the character of AC/DC just cuts through on this thing. Yeah, Mel mentioned Girl Scout Rhythm. Walk All Over You is just a great feel to that song. Shot Down in Flames is another one. Great feel. You Want Blood, You Got It. Night Prowler. Very perverted, sneaky, weird vibe to that song. Very cool way to end this album, to be honest. Instead of going out with a bang, they went out with kind of a kind of feel, which is cool.
In terms of atmosphere, it reminds me of like Queensryche's cover of "Gonna Get Close to You."
Yeah,
just in terms of the the vibes it gives off. Yeah.
Yep. And someone in the chat said, "Is he wearing a pentagram necklace?"
Yes,
he is. I don't know if it's just he thought it was a cool star or what, but it looks like.
Oh, come on now, he knew what it was.
Oh, Bon, there you go. So yeah, it's my number 2. I think it's a fantastic album. Then Tragedy Strikes. Bon loses his life in a car. What a tragedy. And we're brought to 1980. Back in Black with a new singer from Geordie was the name of the band that Brian
Geordie.
Johnson?
Yep.
He which I've seen recently some live Geordie stuff, and Brian Johnson does not sound like that. He sings in AC/DC. He's actually a very smooth, good singer. And you know, he jumped into AC/DC trying to emulate Bon. And yeah, so he had big shoes to fill. 1980. What do you think of Back in Black?
Yeah, I mean, he had big shoes to fill, and I think he nailed it on the first album. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Really knocked it out of the park. I mean, I honestly, like, what can you possibly say about this album that people don't already think? You know what I mean? It's one of the most popular, well-known rock albums ever made, considered one of the greatest ones ever made. I mean, it starts out with Hell's Bells, which I think is one of the best opening tracks that AC/DC has in their discography. Definitely one of the best sounding Brian Johnson albums.
It is. It's a big, humongous sounding rock record. It sounds great.
Which is, funny because they continue to go on forever and ever after this. I honestly like the deeper cuts on this album more. I mean, Back in Black, Hell's Bells, You Shook Me All Night Long are so overplayed. Like those are the like 4 songs that
never need to hear again.
And then Iron Man came along with Robert Downey Jr. and made them popular again with that, like because he's such an AC/DC fan, and it was like on the soundtrack. And that's the only AC/DC album I don't own, with the exception of the newest one, is the Iron Man soundtrack. That's just basically all AC/DC songs. It's like a greatest hits album. But I love Have a Drink on Me, Shake a Leg, and the last song, Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution. Like, I like the deeper cuts more on this, and that's because the album is some of the songs are so overplayed. And for that reason, it's a little bit of a harder album to stomach for that reason, because of just how popular it is. Like, I definitely don't pull it off the shelf first.
Sure.
But I do have it at number 4 on my ranking, just because it is still phenomenal. And like, Brian Johnson coming in and taking over for Bon Scott, who literally probably made, one of the best rock albums before that up until this time. It's big shoes to fill, and I think they nailed it with it. So I got to give it its due. I feel wrong putting it out of the top 5, so I had it in 4.
All right, Alan.
Okay. Yep. Back in Black. like Melanie said, one of the most iconic records. I understand a lot of people are tired of it. The songs are used in everything, but the bottom line, I was looking it up here just a minute ago. There are only 2 albums, that have reported sales of 50 million copies or more, and this is one of the 2. So to say that it was a huge album is a gross understatement.
Yeah.
By the end of this album's touring cycle, the band could have disappeared immediately, and they would still have been, essentially rock legends for the next 50 years, just with that. They of course didn't. They continue on, but yeah, this album cemented their place in that pantheon of absolute rock and roll idols. Whether you're tired of it, burned out on it, never got into it in the first place, 50 million album sales has only happened one other time. That's that thing. It is a great sounding album. Now here, I think, the production is fine for the material. It works great. Everything sounds huge, clear, well balanced. It's the sound you needed for this album to break big. In terms of, Brian Johnson coming into the band, obviously, it was a very tough thing for the band to deal with. They had to take a break from recording, fly back to Australia, to bury Bon. They talked with his family. The family was, they had no qualms or doubts. They wanted the band to continue. They're like, don't you dare think about hanging it up. Keep doing it. And I think the band had already decided they were going to, but it meant a lot to them to have the family's blessing for that. They, tried a lot of different guys. They were mainly auditioning in the UK, and a big thing for Brian Johnson in terms of getting, past the first hurdle, kind of, getting the second interview call, is that, he didn't present himself the same way so many people did. When they asked him, like, what songs he wanted to, play for the audition, he was naming things like, like old Ike and Tina Turner tracks. Most of the guys that came to the door reportedly were wanting to cover, like, Deep Purple type tracks. And like, as soon as we saw, some other asshole wrap his leg around the mic stand like David cover, like, get this fucker out of here. We're done with this shit. But, Johnson came in, shot pool with them, had beer with them. Was wanting to play that kind of stuff. Like, this guy's all right. This might be something here. And it obviously worked out great for everyone. Geordie had long since come and gone. Brian Johnson at the time actually had resurrected Geordie. So it was like Geordie, 2.0. And they were doing okay, at least, as sort of like, a local to regional thing. Brian was actually pretty torn about, walking away from those guys and leaving them kind of hanging at the time. AC/DC, the rest of the band actually was very considerate about that too. I don't remember the details, but AC/DC sort of paid the other members of Geordie 2.0 for having poached their singer and stuff. There was when they wanted, I think, Brian Johnson to come back for like a second audition. He's like, I'd love to. I kind of have a gig this weekend with my band. And most people would say, are you fucking nuts? You can audition for AC/DC or you can go play a pub for 70 punchers. AC/DC's like, no, that's cool. We understand. Absolutely. So I think they kind of, appreciated his down to earth honesty about things. They liked the fact that he fit the same kind of character mold as Bon. Like you've said earlier tonight, Marty, he came across as more of an everyman. He wasn't trying to be a David Coverdale rock star or anything. They also liked the fact that he did not sound exactly like Bon. They had decided really early that they did not want a Bon clone. They're like, that wouldn't feel right. No, you're just not going to replace him. So why the fuck would you try to get a cheap imitation of him? We don't want that. So having a different, more distinct voice of his own played in his favor too. He joins the band. They make the second best-selling record of all time. I ranked this one. Melanie ranked it 4. I also ranked it as number 4. Even if it's not one I reach to play a lot anymore, there's really no denying that, start to finish, it's a pretty monster album. And I don't care how many times I hear You Shook Me All Night Long. That song, I cannot get tired of that song.
Yeah.
I don't play
Yeah.
it 10 times a day, but I've heard it hundreds of times. If I hear it another 100 times, I will still enjoy it.
What
It's,
song? I was reading the chat.
Oh, sorry. You Shook Me All Night Long.
Oh, yeah.
Makes you want to dance, that's for sure. It's a wedding song. I feel like every
Yes.
wedding I've ever been to, that's what they play.
It's great. Yeah. And, they still, of course, several of these songs became staples of the live set forever. I got to see them play live in the earliest 2000s. They still, came out with Hell's Bells and everything and still sounded great. All right, Marty, your take on Back in Black.
I mean, it is a damn near flawless rock record. It really is. I love the production. It's so heavy and so full. Brian Johnson really does a great job, even though he's kind of screeching. He can actually kind of do it in a way it's tuneful. He's staying in key. He's offering a lot of emotion in it as well. But God, looking at this track list, Hell's Bell, Shoot to Thrill, What Do You Do for Money, Honey, Giving the Dog a Bone. That's just a rocker. That song's a rocker. Let Me Put My Love Into You. Let Me Cut Your Cake with My Knife. I mean, stay classy, Brian Johnson. That's all I got to say there.
Oh, he's filthy. Man,
Oh, yeah.
He's filthy after this.
Yeah. Back in Black, You Shook Me All Night Long, Have a Drink on Me, a great song, Shake a Leg. And my favorite on here, Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution. I love the swagger in that song. It's just a really good, heartfelt, emotive song, a tribute and obvious passion for rock and roll spills over into that song perfectly. I think it's a great way to close the album. For me, this is a number 5. Don't own it. It's just there's so many hits on it. I don't know if I ever come across it. There's been a couple times I almost bought it because of the black cover. It is always trashed. Every single one I find at a record show, the copies are always completely trashed. Just from the rubbing against other records. Yeah. It's just the way it is. But but go ahead.
I was gonna say I have a couple copies. I'll send you one.
I'll take it. Next up, the follow-up, 1981's For Those About to Rock. We Salute You, Mel.
I would say this is
Great
probably one of the more divisive AC/DC albums amongst the fans. In following up, Back in Black almost seemed like an impossible task at this point. So I can understand why people didn't really care too much for this album when it first came out. I love For Those About to Rock, We Salute You. The cannons at the end always gave me chills and goosebumps. Yeah. It's such a great opening anthem. The album kind of changes after that, though. Like that intensity, it's still definitely there on the album, but they get a little bit more. I guess there's just a bit of a different energy after that. Put the Fingers on You, Let's Get It Up. It definitely still has that familiar like AC/DC swagger. It's still there. The riffs are a little bit slower. There's a little bit, heavier grooves on this album. I would say probably less of a party rock album from past albums. But honestly, I think it's more. I think it's one of the more underrated albums in the discography. I really, really enjoy it now. It definitely was a grower on me, that's for sure. Probably one that I slept on for way too long within this discography. And I do think that it is an essential piece of the collection. I think people should, not hate on it as much as they have. What did I have this as? I had this at number 9. So it's definitely in my top 10. I actually really have grown quite fond of this album throughout the years. I actually listened to it a couple of times this past week, and it's got a lot of great tracks on it. I would say Breaking the Rules, probably one of the more sleeper tracks on here that I wasn't the biggest fan of, but yeah, I do love this. I do love this album. I think it's great, but I have it at number 9. And yeah, I think Alan, you're next, right? Yeah.
Yep.
How are you cheating off my paper so much tonight? What the hell? It must be a Midwest thing. It must be a Midwest thing. The Midwest connection.
I'll be right back with my.
Sure. Let's see. My copy of For Those About to Rock is an odd one. It's a 2 CD set that for some reason it pairs For Those About to Rock with TNT, although it's a really bad image of the TNT cover. So it's like both albums, but it's only 1 CD. So both of them are crammed onto 1 disc. Strange pair of albums to put together. I don't quite get it. But there's a couple of others they did this way. I want to say Flick of the Switch might be paired with either Dirty Deeds or High Voltage or something. Just a weird little 2-on-1 series that came out a long time ago.
Billy Ramone says it's a Russian copy.
I've wondered what the deal is with that.
They would do that. They double weird things.
They would do that. I'm trying to see if it had like any funny. Yeah, actually, it does. It does have Cyrillic print on it. So yeah, it must be a Russian one. Thanks, Billy. Had noticed that before. Melanie, hit it on the head. How do you've made Back in Black and it's conquered the world?
Tough album.
How do you follow that up?
A year later.
A year later, yes, and obviously, tons of touring going on in there. A big thing, and I think Seagull Poet pointed out earlier. One of the big things that broke AC/DC so big eventually was they never stopped touring. Really, they kept grinding at it until they won those audiences over. It wasn't just a matter of let's put the record out there and we'll let the radio stations take it from there. They were always on the road, hitting different territories, bouncing back and forth between Europe, the UK, the US. They started, by this point, they weren't going back to Australia as much. They had kind of blown over in the home territory, but, from time to time, still had to get back there. My deal with For Those About to Rock is basically that the album starts really well and quickly runs out of gas. Like Melanie said, I like For Those About to Rock. It's a fun anthemic song. And yes, the canon thing can sound cheesy, but I think it works fantastic. I like the 2 tracks after it. I think Put the Finger on You and Let's Get It Up are both fine. But even by track 4, Inject the Venom for me is where it starts to feel like this maybe they didn't have quite enough time to really flesh out an entire track list. I mean, the production's still great. The sound's still great. They're obviously still riding that high from the last album, but I don't know if there's anything on the second half of this that I really would put on the same
level. Venom's a good song.
Again, it's one of those for me that it reminds me, I don't know, it's just a little too jerky in structure or something. Inject the venom.
First side is better though, definitely.
Yeah, so it's a very top-loaded album. 3 great songs to start it off with, and after that, I lose interest. I go back and play it from time to time, figuring maybe I'll find a deep cut here and there that I like, something I've overlooked. I never have. So it's kind of funny because I also have it ranked 9th, but in my mind, it's kind of like, yeah, this is, a kind of a weak 9. Whereas I think, for Melanie, it's maybe, gone up to 9. For me, it's like, I could almost bump this out of the top 10 and not miss it too awfully much. But still, it's worth the price of admission for the 3 songs. But I probably want a discount on that admission price if I can get it for this one.
I mean, I got mine for like $10.
I got mine for 3.
Yeah,
I paid $10 for this weird CD press of it.
It's got
I'm okay with that.
Sticker residue all over the jacket and stuff.
This thing, I've cleaned it like 15 times and it's still. I mean, it's very well partied on.
Yeah, the jacket's really rough. Like it's like the Back on Black. It scratches like crazy.
Yeah, with that gold. Yeah.
Yep. But Marty, what's your take on this? Are you saluting those who are about to rock? Or?
I am. I think it's a good. I remember back in the day having this on tape and not thinking too much about it other than a couple songs, but I picked it up for $3 at a used bookstore here in town a couple years ago, and kind of grew on me. I think I remember it being better than I did back then in the day. And this is my number 9. You got Mutt Lange producing it again. Obviously, they're going to stick with that high dollar rock producer because it's worked so well 3 albums in a row now. And you're both right. How do you follow up Back in Black? It's almost a damn near perfect record. And this feels like they were shooting for Back in Black Part 2, but the songs just aren't as hard hitting. Obviously, they put the heavy hitter first. For Those About to Rock is a classic. Evil Walks is a great song. COD. I really do like the first side. I think you're right. The second side is a bit tougher, but still nothing bad or out of place, really.
No, nothing stinks on it.
Nothing stinks. It's a pretty solid record. I mean, what are you going to do? You keep going. If you know, we said it a bunch on here. How do you follow up a monumental record? You just keep going. Just keep going and hope for the best. But speaking of keeping going, 2 years later, they put out Flick of the Switch in 1983, which this album always kind of underwhelmed me a bit, but
I think it's underrated.
It's not bad. I listened to it again this week. I'm like, yeah, it's better than I remember it.
Yeah, I mean, they don't. Mutt's not on this one.
Yep. They leave. At this point, they work with someone else. Is this where they start doing it themselves? I don't remember.
Says remastered George. That's how they remastered it. I don't remember who the. Yeah. But this is definitely I think it's one of their more misunderstood albums in there.
Yeah, they did produce this one themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit more stripped back, that's for sure, especially from the production. There's no glossy production on this at all. It sounds like raw amps, dry drums, and again, probably because they produced it themselves, but I'll be honest, like, I think some of the songs don't quite hit the mark for sure. One that definitely really had to grow on me as the years went on. I didn't even own this album up until they remastered it for the 50th anniversary edition. It was the first time I'd ever owned it. And I just, there's definitely a lot of good songs on here, but there's also some songs that I definitely am fine with skipping. But again, it's got that raw charm to it. It's definitely missing a lot of that early 80s hard rock sound that we had so used to hearing out of AC/DC. But I do love how authentic it does feel. Like, I think the band was trying to have that authenticity in here and try to take on, that undertaking of producing their own album. It didn't chase like the radio trends that they had been doing in their past albums. It didn't have like that arena rock gloss to it, that's for sure. I just think that they just let it rip. Like, they literally just plugged in their instruments and they just went for it, and they didn't try to, it's almost like they didn't try to appease anybody. And so
you listen to it, it sounds very together. It's a good sounding record. It just isn't the boom bombasticness of the three that came before it.
It's just not over the top like how, but I it's not a masterpiece, that's for sure. It's not. But it definitely is. I still think it's a little bit underrated. It's definitely grown on me quite a bit. I had this at number 11, which I think you can probably understand some of the albums that I would much rather listen to this over as we get deeper. I think, it's definitely, it has really grown on me. I love the album cover. It's just so simple, to the point. Like, and I just love that. I've even considered getting this tattooed on me just because of just the simplicity of it and just how cool it looks. But yeah, I have it at number 11. Not perfect, but again, not terrible by any means.
All right, Alan.
Yeah, this is the first one I don't own a copy of, and I don't think I've ever owned a copy of Flick of the Switch. Just never
I had
picked
on
it
tape. I never really connected with it.
Yep. It's not a bad album. It's really not. And Melanie's absolutely right. This is like, for the first time, the band felt like they needed to kind of go back to their roots a bit. That they had been, with the Muttlange albums, obviously, huge fame and fortune and success. But they felt like maybe we were getting a little too far away from what is at the kind of core of AC/DC. And so I think that was it was a very conscious decision to not work with Muttlange again or any big producer, to kind of do it themselves so they could make sure it would turn out the way they wanted it to, and they wanted it to sound more like something they would have done, 5, 6, 7 years before this, not something else that was going to be super slick, glossy, overproduced, or anything. And it did. And I think it worked well. I think it was mission accomplished in that sense. It has a rougher sound to it, but still sounds good. It's not like they got in there and had no idea what to do or anything. Decent set of songs. It's just, it's an album I'm fine with. I've just never have spent a ton of time with it. But I really, when I do hear it, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, this is actually fine. So yeah, it's also a point in the band's career where, behind the scenes, there are some cracks starting to form. People are having some issues handling success at this point. AC/DC always seems like, a band that holds it together pretty well. But again, when you're paying attention, there are lineup changes along the way, and some lineup changes aren't too far in the horizon at this point. Phil Rudd was having issues, well before they started working on this album. He was having some episodes that, and again, being the tough guy Australians, they weren't all sitting around, in a friendship circle discussing their feelings every night. People weren't necessarily paying attention to one another. Some of the guys were drinking too much. Some of them, part of this again stems from they were still dealing with the loss of Bon. Although Brian had come in and was done great, he was accepted by the band. There was no, like, to my knowledge, there was no hazing period like Jason Newsted put up with or anything like that. He was accepted. They knew that he was the guy and they liked him for it. But they were still mourning the loss of their friend, touring constantly, dealing with the pressure of now being, a highly visible, rock band that they had to go to the Bahamas to record this just to kind of get away from everything. They recorded it like in a very kind of, lo-fi studio. They didn't have a lot of things like, that's fine. We don't care. Nobody can contact us here. Great. we're hiding here. So it's a good album. They did what they wanted to with it. But there is some trouble brewing in the background by this point. And Shredbeard, thank you very, very much. Do appreciate that quite a bit.
Thanks a bunch, Shredbeard. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, it's fun having in the chat. So I ranked it about the same as Melanie. I think I had it. Melanie, you had it 11. You said.
Yeah.
I've got it 10, and that could flip flop with my number 11, which we'll get to before very long. Marty. Do you flick the switch? I'm sorry, that sounded dirty. That's not what I was going for. My bad. Let's try that again.
Why would you ask?
Let's try this again. How hard do you flick?
What do you think the answer to that
is? There's a joke I can make with this title, and I just can't find it right now. So let me just shut up and let you talk.
No. Good Christian man. I would never do such a thing.
Switch that flick, Marty.
Melanie, dare you? I have not listened to this album since I had it since I was a kid, and putting it on this week, I do like it. I think it's a solid rock record, and judging by the fact they recorded it themselves, they've obviously been in the environment enough. They learned what to do. I think the album sounds good. Does it sound as good as the Mutt Lange stuff? Nah. It doesn't. It clearly doesn't. And that might be part of the loss of impact. But, I listened to it once, and someday I might circle back around to it again. Of course, Flick of the Switch, that's the one I'd remember from back in the day. It's the very recognizable song, one of the highlights on the album for me. But yeah, I didn't find it offensive. It's just AC/DC doing AC/DC things. So for me, it's number 10. Okay. The next one is going to be a bit of a hot take. I might get some things hurled at me for, but 1985's Fly on the Wall. Melanie. I
really like this album cover, by the way. Some people shit on it, but I think it's cute. It's cute and simple. Yep. They produced this one too. This was the last time they self-produced their album, I believe. The one thing about this album is just production is not great. That's for sure. The vocals are a little bit buried. It's a little bit muddy sounding. but I really love this album too at the same time. For whatever reason, it's not anything like super fantastic. Like honestly, it's just not the perfect album, but it's not a disaster either. I definitely think, again, like I said, Split the Switch is an underrated album. This is definitely an underrated album for sure. But I think that they're trying to do something where they're adapting without losing the AC/DC sound. But it doesn't have that like real sonic clarity as like, you know, Powerage did, or I mean, even Ballbreaker Video has a much better sound to it. I don't hate the album, that's for sure. I had this at number 12, so just right under Flick of the Switch. I really do like Playing with Girls.
Oh, really?
As soon as that came out, my mom was like, son of a bitch.
You too, Mel. It's all good. Someone flicking my switch. I don't know.
I mean, Sink the Beat. Yeah, you know the songs. Yeah, I have it at number 12. Again, it's not perfect, but I much prefer this over some of the newer albums. That's for sure.
I just found a new shirt I need to make you.
Should be my new slogan.
Yeah. All right, Alan.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page as Melanie when it comes to this album. Another self-produced one. Not a bad album, not amazing. We do have the lineup change here. Yeah, Phil had to be let go. Few too many issues there. Simon Wright comes in. Simon had been in multiple different new wave of British heavy metal bands, including acts like Aurora, Titan, a lot of bands people have long since forgot about, except me and Metal Theologian in the chat. He would go on to work with Dio, of course, around Unlock the Wolves. So Simon's been in a lot of big bands over the time. This album, Flick of the Switch didn't do great. Yeah, it was the first time that while the band was happy with that album, it really, there was a drop in terms of like sales. They were still a popular touring act, but by this point, the record company's thinking, "Where is our Back in Black Part 2? What's going on here, guys?" So, they do this. It sounds a bit different. I don't have a lot to say about this one because it's not an album I really play hardly ever. I've owned a copy of it once upon a time, let go of it, never picked it back up. But it's not a bad album either. Kind of like Melanie said, while by the standards of this era, it feels like, there's not as much here, but I would still take it over a lot of the albums that we've yet to get to. So it's right there in the middle. Melanie had it at number 12. I think I've got it at number 11. And again, the numbers here can definitely be plus or minus at least one. Yeah. Not a bad album for me. Kind of just an average, maybe a little above average album, but again, when you're ranking it like 11th, it means there's 10 AC/DC albums you like more than it. So how often am I going to play my 11th favorite AC/DC album? The answer is not very often. So the band working in a new drummer, and Simon had been working with the band a little bit before this. I think he even appeared in some of the videos done around the Flick of the Switch era. But this is the first time he appears with them on album. And you get a decent, though not necessarily top-notch, mid-80s AC/DC record. That's my opinion anyway. Marty, what's yours?
There's something about this record. I don't know what it is. I don't know. Where is that? Yeah, right here. James. Like the music videos they were playing in the bar, the cartoon Fly. I remember watching that. I dubbed that. I used to go to Horizon Video, and they had the video VHS for that, and I duplicated it, and I watched it over and over and over again. And out of all the AC/DC albums, this one of the Brian Johnson stuff, this album I connected with it. The songs are so catchy. Sink the Pink, First Blood, Fly on the Wall, Hell or High Water. I mean, Back in Business. What great riff in that song. There's just something about this record that, the whole 80s era is a bit nostalgic. This, I'm looking at it, it seems a little ridiculous, but it ended up number 4 on my list. I put this on. I used to have this on tape, got rid of it. I'm like, I'm looking for a vinyl copy, and I never can find it at a record show at a price I'm willing to pay for it, for that nostalgic dopamine hit every once or twice a year. But listening to it this week, this is one of the few that I went back to a second time and listened to, because I just remember such fond memories, and it's such a great record. This for me is the last one with Brian Johnson that I really get it. I really, really get. And after this, you go to 1988's Blow Up Your Video. And for me, there's a big change in the Brian Johnson era. Things really start getting overproduced, and they kind of smooth out the rough edges of AC/DC. And you start stripping that street type of vibe that they would have. I mean, even they survived the Mutt Lange era, being big, heavy rock records. It's still, the edge was still there, but now we're getting into a different, I don't know if digital recording is starting to take off, changing the way things are done. But Blow Up Your Video. Melanie, do you want to mention who made who? I know that's right around here too. That's another song I never need to hear again.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Who Made Who. I don't even own it. This one's like the only one that I don't own. I think I had it on CD at one point.
Yeah, I mean, I've got it, but again, it's it's the soundtrack you want. A lot of the songs are just remakes and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, I don't think any of us counted it as one of the studio albums. So we can move on.
But yeah, Blow Up Your Video, that production, they just made it so much more like grandiose and polished, and definitely like sharper. The songs sound tighter than the last album. Brian Johnson, I think, sounds good on this album still. It definitely has he definitely has a it still has that ferocity to his singing. I mean, Thunderstruck, like everybody knows that song.
I don't think that's on this one. That's on
that's next album.
That's not it. Yeah. Next album. Yeah. Okay. Now I'm confusing him. Anyway, this one I can honestly say
easy to do.
Yeah. I don't listen to this album very often. And I think that's just because I think for me, like Marty said, something about this album just didn't really ever click with me.
It's very uninteresting. It's very uninteresting.
Yeah, it almost feels like they were trying to make such a good rebound album from their last two that didn't do well in the charts. And I feel like that they tried to do almost too much at this point for this album. I had this at number 15, so I have it pretty low in my list, and I really don't have much to say about it other than it's not the best I don't think it's an essential AC/DC album to have, but for sure Heat Seeker, I mean, this is a good song. I like that song. Yeah, This Means War. I mean, but yeah, I mean, those are like the two standout tracks on this album, and I couldn't even like really call out much of anything else. So yeah, this is one of the first albums in their discography where I just really never really clicked it too much, which is funny because I was only 4 years old. Never mind. I was gonna say, which is funny because I grew up and I didn't really grow up with it.
All right, Alan.
Yeah, again, kind of the same page as Melanie. Some folks in the chat dig this one, and that's cool. Malcolm and Angus still trying to produce it, but it sounds really flat to me. The songs lack energy for the most part. There's 2 tracks on here I like, Heat Seeker and Two's Up. And the rest of it, I just, don't care for.
Malcolm was also like a drunk, like wasn't he really bad alcoholic?
At this point, Malcolm's drinking was a real problem. And yeah, they're still working as a band, but again, Simon's, still on board, but they miss Phil. Phil had been the guy for a long time, and he's gone. Bon is gone. Malcolm's drinking too much. This is also around the point where Brian started having trouble with lyrics. Brian had actually, really early with his tenure in the band, he was invited to start handling the lyrics. So like Bon wrote all the lyrics for the Bon albums.
Cut your cake with my knife.
When Brian took his place, it was very much expected. It's like, okay, you're the singer. You write the damn words. That's what you do. That's what the last guy did. That's what you're going to do too. We're going to write the music. You're going to write the words. But by this point, after having done, 3 albums with him already, Brian's lyrical tank was running a bit dry. So it's almost like everyone here is, having some issues
burnout
at this point.
Yeah.
And part of it is, part of it's burnout. They've been a on the go for over a decade, working through multiple, losing members of the band they really liked. Some of them, permanently, of course, with Bon. There's also was a little bit of maybe a sense of like, disillusionment. This is, we're in what, 88. You're like, kind of peak MTV era dominance of music. And that wasn't something AC/DC ever fully embraced. Sure, they had videos and sure they did well, but that kind of, packaging or as a way, that vehicle for delivering music really wasn't what AC/DC was about. They're like, we're a live band. You come see the concert, we kick your ass, we blow out your eardrums, and you love us. Not, we get pimped up and kind of mime to the songs and pretend to play the guitar while you shoot us from 17 different camera angles. Fuck that. That's the whole point of the album's title. Blow Up Your Video was kind of, the, polite way of saying F you to MTV. Get rid of your stupid fucking videos and just listen to rock and roll. But the album just doesn't work. It just doesn't. I think there's, a few too many demons haunting the band at this point. The songs just aren't there. The production is really not there. You end up, Marty, Melanie, I forget which of you said it, but one of you says like the album sounds flat. Couldn't agree more. That's the perfect word for it. It's a very flat sounding album. So apologies to those in the chat who dig it. That's cool that you dig it. I mean, for some folks around my age, this was the first AC/DC album that kind of came out when we were getting into things. I can see where some folks might, still really love it. And like I said, even this one's got 2 songs that I like. So it's not like it's a complete throwaway, but it's close. I rank it at the very bottom. 17 out of 17 for me. Marty, your turn. Have you got it? Melanie and I are not too keen on it. What do you think?
Yeah, this is the era where I checked out of AC/DC, other than the video type stuff and Heat Seeker. I remember that was like a pseudo hit from the album because I remembered it.
Yeah.
But listening to the album, there was nothing on display that made me. It was like wallpaper. It was like background noise. Nothing in it felt. Nothing was bad or wrong or out of place. It felt very uninspired to me. I mean, it's still AC/DC doing what they do here, but the songs just feel like an obligation more than the passion.
They're going through the motions.
So yeah, this ended up being number 11 for me, and which leads us to 1990's The Razor's Edge, which I think received quite a bit of critical acclaim for the time, if my memory serves. What did you think about
Simon
it?
Wright is out of the band, and a new drummer whose name I'm blanking on. Chat will help me out with that.
Total redemption album for sure. This is a great album. Everything about this album I really love. Production's better, much more energy, doesn't seem as flat than what we had just listened to. We're in the 90s now, so I mean, yeah, Fire Your Guns is a great song. Money Talks, everybody knows Money Talks. Thunderstruck, like I actually said before. I don't know what else. I was just trying to get away from that other album. Yeah, I mean the drums they sound. I think this is just a much better sounding record. I think did this win like Grammys or something crazy like that?
Must have been
I
a
don't
rough
know.
year,
I don't
a
know.
bad year for music that year.
I don't know. I mean, there's no way because it was '90s, so we're like getting into like grunge now. But there's definitely some really good deep tracks on here, like Goodbye and Good Riddance to Bad Luck. I like that song. Rock Your Heart Out is good. They've got some of the like bluesiness coming back into their songs. I mean, come on, another Balls song, Got You by the Balls, is on here. I actually had this a little bit higher than I thought I was going to, but I have it at number 10.
Mistress for Christmas. It's good to know Brian Johnson got his lyrical muse back. Anyway,
he didn't write that though, did he? Didn't Angus?
I think at this point they were having other folks help with the lyrics.
I think Angus and Malcolm were like the main writers after this.
Yeah, once Brian ran out of ideas, he never really got back into.
But they had to give him a muse to sing about. So, yeah. I have this at number 10. I think it's a pretty underrated. I think it's like I feel like this one just started to get its due in terms of appreciation. It seems like they like reissued it a lot lately, and people are like, oh yeah, that is a really good AC/DC album. But yeah, I gave it number 10.
All right.
That's right. Wow.
Alan, that's kind of a weird bill, but I guess it makes sense for the time. What Motley Crue had Dr. Feelgood and Queensryche had No.
They were on Empire around that time.
Empire, yeah.
Yep. Or in between the two.
Yeah.
But yeah, Razor's Edge, yes, it is a good bounce back record for sure. Better production, better, just more livelier, more energetic songs. Chris Slade is now the drummer. Yep. Had to double check that. This album, I understand why people don't like it. It's not a perfect album. It's got some good songs. It's got some filler songs too. For me, there's a lot of sentiment attached to this album because this was a huge album when I was in high school. This came out maybe my sophomore year. And yeah, clicked pretty hard. Thunderstruck was the lead single. Money Talks was a very popular single off of it. And, it was funny. There were some kids in my high school who didn't like this one so much because they felt it didn't quite sound like classic AC/DC. I remember specifically kids arguing about that lead intro guitar part to Thunderstruck. That some of the, quote unquote, old school AC/DC fans, old school at the age of 15, their complaint was, it's like, that doesn't sound like AC/DC. We want to hear AC/DC play power chords, not this like super noodly little guitar line for the whole song. The rest of us were like, what the hell are you talking about? That's awesome. If they can do more than one thing. But yeah, so, there were some grumbles about the album when it came out. But nevertheless, I mean, it became, a huge part of the high school soundtrack for me and my friends. And there are a lot of tracks, that are good on it. Thunderstruck gets overplayed these days, and it's crammed into every, mass, marketed product you can think of. It's still a good song. It still works extremely well. It's well written. I'm okay with Money Talks. I know it's just kind of, a for fun poppy song, but it works for me. And like Melanie said, some of the other tracks are good. The Razor's Edge is actually not a bad track. It's a little bit, has a little bit of that darker edge to it. But there are also songs on here that I don't need. Rock Your Heart Out, I never really connected with. Goodbye and Good Riddance to Bad Luck. That song title is at least 3 words too long. And that's the best thing about the song. So yeah, it's not an album I want to sit and play start to finish most of the time. This is one where I can skip some tracks and I don't feel like I'm missing much. But again, it's a big part of the soundtrack from my teenage years. And I do agree with Melanie. I think this one has been a little overlooked with time. I think some folks have gone back and realized that, yeah, it's not that bad. It's not back to the glory days of the late 70s and earliest 80s, but it's the best thing they had done in many years, and I think for me, it's maybe the last. I don't even know if I want to say essential ACDC record. It's let's see. In terms of ranking, it's the last one I put in their top 10. I have it ranked at number 7, and I'll freely admit 1 or 2 points got there because of the nostalgia factor. But I'd put it in the top 10. Nothing after this is going to be a top 10 AC/DC album for me. But Marty, where you got this one?
This is dead fucking last for me. This album, I struggled really hard. I don't know if this is the shift in the week where I'm like, you know what? I'm over it.
You're done.
I'm
Marty
so
has had enough. He has flicked the switch off.
Yeah, I flipped the switch off. And but the thing of it is, it all kind of stems from my severe dislike of the song Thunderstruck. I hate that song. I've always hated that song. It made me not want to hear this album. You know, they put Brian Johnson in a position where he has to sing high up in his register, where it sounds like he's struggling. And the way that like that he says something really high up on his own, they like leave him hanging out to dry. They're like putting emphasis on him hitting these higher notes, and he's struggling with it. It always bothered the shit out of me. And then I looked through this track listing, and oh God, it's 11, 12 songs. It's long. It felt like it wouldn't end. The sound production is a bit louder, a bit better, which, you know, saying something is louder, on the Apple Music, it's the high res lossless version of it. So it's like that could be remastered. I did not have this back in the day. So yeah, this is just the point in their career where this is it. This is the peak for AC/DC. What you're going to get after here is autopilot. It's autopilot from here on out for me. But yeah, number 17, it got there mainly for Thunderstruck. But the rest of the album is just very lackluster for me. I have a really hard time getting excited about this one.
It is too long. Like I would agree with you there that they needed to probably cull a couple of songs off of it.
A lot of
everything else you said is horrible, and I hate you.
And that's kind of these albums coming up to sail out the rest of their career. Yep. They all feel too long. Yeah, I'm sorry, Anthony. I'm sorry.
But you know, one other thing too, Marty. I mean, in a way, it does. In all seriousness, it kind of makes sense to me that you're not into this album. And I think part of that may reflect just the age gap between you and me, because for me, this is the high school party album. But for you, it would have been, you're already out of high school by this time. You would have been into heavier stuff, more interesting stuff.
I'm spinning Holy Terror and, you know, really killer fucking thrash records in my Ford
exactly.
Thunderbird.
Yeah. This album had there is zero sentimentality for you with this album. Whereas for me, I was the perfect age for this album to hit. So I get why we have a very different take on this one, just because of there's a 5-year age difference, and this is exactly it. It highlights it.
I don't want to yuck anybody's yum here. I see I'm making some people sad in the chat. Sorry, but yeah, at this point, I'm politely getting off the AC/DC train. But yep, we've got Ballbreaker is next.
1995.
1995.
Yeah, I actually own this one, which I don't know why, because I don't remember last time I listened to it until this week.
That's exactly right, Devin. Not much is Pink Bubbles Go Ape.
Not the biggest fan of this album. I mean, there's a couple good songs at best. It really falls flat. It feels like it lacks any sort of melody or rhythm at times. Like some of the tracks really blur together, all samey sounding. I don't know. It's just not a very memorable album at all. I think for good reason. I mean, it's just, I don't really have much to say about this album. It's my least favorite album. I have it at number 17. I've tried. I mean, I bought the album. I tried because so many of my people, like my friends, have been like, "Oh, you're too harsh. Like, give it a chance. It's totally underrated." No, it just falls so flat. Like, I much prefer some of the newer albums over this one.
All right, Alan.
Yeah, and here's where there's a 5-year gap between this and Razor's
Yeah.
Edge. And this is where I end up in the same place Marty was at with Razor's Edge. 5 years later, I'm listening to nothing but real serious heavy metal. I'm digging into new wave of British heavy metal. I've kind of lost interest in AC/DC. I remember the album coming out and it being hyped to an extent. I just didn't fucking care. And when I heard it, I cared even less. And before I rant about it we did kind of blow past. AC/DC did put out the live collection in between these two, which was a huge thing. This really was kind of the point where AC/DC was becoming a brand almost to a point. You have the Bonfire set come out in these years, and this is a really good double live album of all the classics. But yeah, Ballbreaker, first off, Phil Rudd returns. The circumstances were a little odd. Chris Slade did a fine job with Razor's Edge, and the band left Chris hanging a bit. The accounts I've read on it were kind of like, Phil had come and seen the band perform, and they were chatting, and Phil was not being very subtle about I'd really like a second chance. I've cleaned up my act. I'm a good boy now. And the band were very much, that might be a thing. And Chris is kind of like, look, this band doesn't need 2 drummers, so what gives? And it accounts, and not just from Chris's point of view, were that the band kind of strung him out for quite a while. To the point that when they finally did just say, yeah, you know what, we're going back, Phil's our boy. Chris basically quit music. He said, he's on record as saying, I didn't even touch my drum set for 3 years. It just broke my heart. Because they just wouldn't make a clean cut of it. So that kind of sucks the way they handled it. Another thing I don't like the way they handled this era. This was another case where they were all about, we want to get back to our roots. We want to get back to that kind of, raw, primal, dirty, gritty, raunchy, pick another adjective kind of.
They never strayed far from their roots. So that statement alone is just it's fucking irrelevant as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, but I mean, you look at the difference between things like they did, with the Bon Scott era versus Mistress for Christmas, for example. There are differences there in terms of production and what they're aiming for.
Yeah.
But so if that's what you want to, if that's where your headspace is at, and that's what you feel you need to do, that's great. So how do we go about that? Well, the band went about that by going to this ultra modern studio in New York and hiring Rick Rubin to produce for them. Wait, what? Huh? You want to get back to your roots by working with Rubin in New York? Is anybody else having trouble with the math here, or is it just me? Because that doesn't make a fucking lick of sense. And unsurprisingly, it kind of crashed and burned. They fucked around in New York for a while, and nothing was coming together. And they were trying to work with Rubin, and I think they started to realize pretty early on that maybe this doesn't work. They ended up relocating to LA to actually record the rest of the album. I don't know if any of the New York stuff made it onto the final album. And you end up, with a really weird sounding AC/DC album. There's no highlights on the album really for me. I don't like the way it sounds. I don't like the track list. It's kind of weird. People were hyped, that Phil was, going to be back in the band. It's kind of like, you're getting, some of the classic lineups back together. And there's just all these other weird shit going on. We're getting back to our roots. Oh, wait, Marvel Comics wants to do the Angus artwork for the cover. Well, sure, we're going to allow that. That will increase our stock portfolio in the third quarter by 3.4%. I thought you were getting back to your goddamn roots. How you doing that with Stan Lee doing the cover art while Rick Rubin's doing, switching up and down the faders for you? It's a boring set of songs. The songs are very repetitive. They just don't have much energy to them. I don't like this album. If it weren't for Blow Up Your Video, this would easily be my least favorite. And yes, Ronnie Chio, they might as well have gotten Ernie C to do the frickin' production at that point. So yeah, I've got this ranked at 16th, and maybe I need to switch this. And Blow Up Your Video did at least have Heat Seeker on it. This has Rick Rubin and Jim Lee cover art. Yay, Angus looks like Wolverine. Who gives a fuck? So I think it's a real miss. But I don't, I missed it when it came out. And when I finally heard it, I'm just like, Jesus, no, thank you. Not interested. Marty, Melanie doesn't like it, and I don't like it. What do you think?
I listened to it, and the constants are still there. Angus is a great guitar player. About time his solos come around, my ears perk up a little bit. I do love his soulful way of playing. There's a few moments on here that I didn't write any track names down because at this point it was just another AC/DC album. I ranked it 12th. It's above the Razor's Edge just because, again, Thunderstruck took that to the bottom. That's just the way that goes. But Ballbreaker, from here on out, it's going to go in order, going up to the end. But Ballbreaker had moments. I'll never listen to it again. That it'll never come across my radar again. But that leads us to Stiff Upper. I will say, though, at this point, I'm anticipating Brian Johnson to start hearing some cracks in his armor vocally. He's still in there. He's still sounding pretty good. Songs like that Stiff Upper Lip. Oh, that's on the next album. We'll get there. 2000, Stiff Upper Lip. Melanie.
Marty's also trying to get away from this album as fast as he can.
Yeah.
All right, hear me out. This is the first time I ever saw AC/DC live. Was on this tour.
They're probably great.
2001 at the United Center in Chicago. It was incredible. Just a out-of-body experience for me, a bucket list band to see live. Don't even remember who the opening band was. Don't even think they exist anymore. But I think that nostalgia is connected to this, having to go. And let me tell you, it was $35. Like, I don't think their ticket prices will ever be that cheap again. I'm pretty sure you're paying easily over $100 for just a ticket to go see them now. I know. I really like this album. I like the bluesiness to it. I think the second half definitely is a better half of the album. From Can't Stop Rock and Roll all the way to Satellite Blues is my favorite song on this album. I love the whole entire second side. I was so hooked on this album when I knew that when it came out. I bought it. I was one of the Walmart trips where I went and got it the day it came out, because I knew I was gonna, I knew that they were going to be touring again because they released a new album. There was like a 5-year gap in between this, their last album.
Another 5-year gap.
So I think just having to see them live for the first time, I played the hell out of this when I got it. After knowing that I was going to go see them, just because I'm one of those people. I like to know the songs that they're playing and get to know the newer songs that they're going to have.
Because you're going to hear some for sure.
Yeah.
I
mean, it has its moments where it's not as, it's got a little bit of flatness to it here and there. And Brian Johnson's starting to sound a little bit older on here, but I still think it's got some really good, bluesy rock moments and I really enjoy it. So I actually have this at my number 8. Okay. I just love the bluesiness on this. And he's got Brian Johnson's got a little bit more of a raspy vocal style.
He's taking it lower too, like on that song "Stiff Upper Lip." He's trying to pass it off as being classy, but it sounds like a guy is his throat's burning out to me.
But I think it works for this. but really this is the last album that gets ranked this high. I start to get burned out on AC/DC after this album.
Yeah. All right, Alan.
Yeah. I would agree with a lot of what Melanie said. I think this album actually is a nice kind of bounce back from the lackluster previous album. And just the big thing here is the songs feel like they have some energy to them. It's a more lively performance. They're more energetic. It's not an album I've heard many times. I don't own a copy, but this one, revisiting it the past couple of weeks, was like, oh yeah, this one actually, it feels like a solid AC/DC album. Whereas Ballbreaker just sounded like going through the motions, doing like too much hype and not enough. I was like, yeah, no, actually, this is pretty solid. So I have it ranked 12th, which doesn't sound particularly high, but Fly on the Wall was 11th. How much room do I have to push it up the list? I just feel like, this is the highest spot I could give it, that was left open. And I'm fine with that. Not a bad album at all. It's the kind of thing, someday I'm going to be digging through used CDs in like a bookstore, and it's going to be sitting there for like, $2.99 or $3.99. I'm going to be like, yeah, sure. Why? I'm not buying anything else today. It's good enough that I might pick it up. So yeah, I don't have a lot of details on this one because, like I said, haven't spent tons of time with it ever, but I do feel like they delivered here, that they got things back on track and delivered a really fun AC/DC album. So number 12, but a thumbs up kind of 12 for me.
Yeah, there was, again, I wrote on my notes, has a few moments for sure. And it's number 13. And really, the AC/DC formula is so intact here. You just know what to expect. And like I said early on in the show, they're a band that offers one thing. And when they stray away from that, things get interesting for me. We often talk about bands like Creator. Well, Creator is a thing that first pops up in my head. Everybody wants them to make Pleasure to Kill Forever. Mm-hmm. And as a band moves on through their catalog, even that would start to feel maybe a bit old. I don't know. But then they do something like Outcast or Endorama and they're lambasted for it. AC/DC broke the code and they just keep doing what they do. And thankfully for them, it is a simple enough sound where it affected a lot of people were drawn to it. This and the albums that come up after it, if you're putting these on at a party, I'd be like, cool, AC/DC. On its own, without a bunch of other AC/DC leading up to it. Again, my fault, my bad. It's the way I do this. It's the way my process isn't perfect. It's just so not rocking the boat. It's just, I've heard it before. And
yeah,
Brian's voice is starting to get a little bit more inflection, and they're putting him way up in the mix too. So when he's doing that lower kind of caddy type of sound, then he goes up to the higher, the Bon Scott register, if you want to call it that. It's where you can tell he might be struggling a bit, but still, it's still pretty damn good for the whole album. So yeah, 13 for me. The next three are rough. It's rough. But 8 years later, we have Black Ice.
I mean, yeah, this one, the next three are pretty much the same album.
They are. They're not bad, but they're not great. They're there,
Yeah, I have this at 14. Easily could have been 13. I don't know. There's really not much of a difference between these next three albums for me.
No.
It's really good produced, that's for sure. Definitely has that commercial production to it. I will say that. It really is. It's got the AC/DC syndrome where it's got filler. It's a 55-minute long album. That's long. So it's got a lot of filler into it. Not a whole lot of variation from what they do normally. Not reinventing the wheel. The theme is still cars and women, rock music, you know. I mean, it's not bad. They definitely, you know, there's some good songs on here, but it just doesn't have that youthfulness and that passion that they had. You know, it really, yeah, it's kind of just okay. Yeah, it's all right. You know, like it's not terrible. I don't know if I'll ever listen to it again after tonight. I don't honestly don't know. Um, but yeah, I don't really have much else to say. Like I couldn't even. Let's see, what were the songs? Rock and Roll Train's good. I do like that song. I was a fan of that. I think it's a strong track, but again, the middle of this album gets pretty samey, blurry. At some point, I'm listening to it and I'm like, wait, what song am I on right now? Like, because I kind of zoned out a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I had this at 13, which at this point, like 13 on, like they're all really the same, in my opinion.
You know, Patty B4H, you know, fair enough. And I say that I wasn't trying to be super mean by saying that, because what they do offer is very cool. And they're one of the few bands that have towed that line their entire career. But they don't offer, what I'm saying is they don't have much to offer. They don't offer much variation or taking chances or so really you're going to get the most impact out of what AC/DC has done, the 10 albums that start their career. Their 10 is maybe being a bit generous. Their first 8 or 9, 8, we'll say. That's what I'm getting at there. I mean, if completely, some people really do connect with that, and that's awesome. I'm glad you dig that. And I can respect it. I respect the dedication and not straying from the path, their creative path. But yeah, once you get past the newness of them and their years where they're trying to find themselves, that it gets a bit plain for me. That's all I'm saying with that. Alan, your thoughts on Black Ice?
Yeah, this is also the point where I agree too. While AC/DC is great at what they do, at this point they've done it enough times that there's not going to be much excitement to be found. You know, for diehard fans that love everything they do, it's great that they kept doing it. But even for me, and I'm, you know, I think it's shown tonight, I'm pretty enthusiastic about the band. Even for me, though, this is the point where it's like, okay, probably have had enough. This is also, again, the point where it feels like, you know, just the branding's taking over. People are wearing AC/DC shirts who know like 3 songs by the band. I think someone just mentioned, I think maybe it was Tony in the chat, or maybe it was Wade mentioned, like, you know, this is the point where you start having like, you know, the Walmart exclusive version of Black Ice versus the, you know, Tower Records version of Black Ice. It's like, the fuck? It's all, really? Does that matter at all? As far as the album goes, it is not bad. The thing I notice about Black Ice that makes it stand out, not necessarily in a good way, but it just makes it different, is a lot of the tracks on here feel more laid back to me. And whether that's age starting to catch up with them a bit, or whether that's them, again, just wanting to tweak the formula a little bit, kind of, you know, back off the hard edge and lean back into that bluesiness a little bit. I don't know. But this one does feel, it's not that it lacks power. It feels like they're intentionally wanting to sit back and rock a while rather than like be up in your face and rock out the whole time. And that's okay. But as a 55-minute album, I don't find it real compelling. So it's got a character that's a little different than the other albums when I listen to it. But yeah, it's not one I want to sit through very often, if ever. A laid back AC/DC, you know, that's now 30, almost 35 years into their career when this comes out. That's fine. I would still say, like, even just, you know, in an absolute vacuum, I'd still say it's an average record. But by AC/DC standards, it's a laid back record that's kind of long. And when you're doing one thing, doing it well, and it's a simple thing, you don't want to overstay your welcome at any given time, because that's when it starts to become noticeable that it's dragging a bit. So yeah, Black Ice, I gave it the same rank as Melanie, 14. Not a bad record, but a little too laid back for me to get really interested or excited in it. Marty, where did you rank this one?
14. It's too long.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm going to say. I mean, it's too long. Is it a bad record? It isn't. Is it a good record? It isn't. It's in the middle. It's a solid AC/DC record. And that leads us to 2014, Rock or Bust.
An album I forgot existed, I will readily admit.
Yeah, I forgot it came out too. When I was going through, I was like, wait a minute, I think I'm missing one. I don't own this one, so I am missing it. This doesn't lack quality at all. Like it's not a bad album. There's definitely some good hooks on here. Like I like the song Play Ball, which I think was like the lead single off of this, now that I am remembering. I like Baptism by Fire, Rock the Blues Away. I mean, they're solid tracks. But again, it's that AC/DC well-oiled machine recipe that they're not straying from. It lacks risk. Like there's no
there's no risk anymore.
Yeah,
it never was really. Once they got it all ironed out, it was locked in, you know.
There's just not a lot of artistic expression reflecting on these, last three albums. They're adhering religiously for the formula at this point. But it is shorter. It's like a 34-minute long album. So they must have figured out that maybe the last album was way too long, but they're sticking to the 4/4 hard rock stomp, and you won't find any deviation from here on out from what they're doing.
Yep.
So I had this at 13, or right over Black Ice, and that's just because it was shorter. So I liked it just a little bit better for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right, Alan. Was it rock or was it a bust?
This one rocks a little bit, and part of that, yes, they reined in the song, the album length, 35 minutes. Someone just said in the chat, 35 minutes is a good length for this album. It does not overstay its welcome.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like Melanie, I put it at 13, a notch up from Black Ice, because it's shorter, and as such, it can pack a little bit of a punch. The songs also here don't feel as laid back to me. They're not, as crazy energetic as they once were, but they don't feel like they're kind of, resting on their laurels a tad. That's probably not the right phrase to use even for Black Ice. Black Ice just feels like it's got, a laid back vibe. This one feels like it's more of a let's rock and roll for 35 minutes vibe. And I'm okay with that. So it's a 13, but it's not a bad 13. It's an album that, if Black Ice was like the definition of this is just a very average record, this one's a better than average record. So yep, I'll bump it up a spot to 13. Marty, your take?
As the chat mentioned, this is Malcolm's last album before someone said he passed the same year this came out. But I mean, number 15
mm-hmm.
Doesn't suck. It's good. Great guitar solos. Songwriting that sounds like AC/DC. I mean, you don't want, at this point, if they were to pull a load or a reload at this point, it makes no sense. What they're doing is what they need to be doing. They need to be AC/DC until it's done. And, we're also talking in here that the hits, they can afford to put these kinds of records out because they're not doing anything wrong. They're doing what they do and what they've always done. And their hits are so substantial. Their history is so ingrained in their legacy, so rock solid that it has afforded them this long career. And it's still, even though they're a bunch of old guys, they're still going to pack all the stadiums because of that, the hits, the legacy, and people's connection, nostalgia with them. even as a hologram. I put in the chat that they will fill stadiums even if they go out AC/DC as a hologram.
Mhm.
Yep.
It's just because it's a testament to what they've built. But here, rocker bus 15 for me. It's if you threw it on at a party and I hadn't heard AC/DC in a while, I'd enjoy it more than I did after a week of listening to AC/DC. Which leads us to 2020's Power Up, the album that didn't seem like was going to get made, but here it is. And actually, it was written. Angus, I saw something online. Angus saying that some of the material was stuff him and Malcolm were working on for an album. I thought it might have been around the Ballbreaker era. I don't remember exactly, but it was some leftover stuff that they're working on. So the spirit of Malcolm is still on this album as well. But 2020's Power Up. What do you think about that one, Melanie?
This is like a whole different band too. Like,
yeah, Brian's back though.
Yeah.
Brian and Cliff Williams are back, but
okay.
yeah, I don't remember. Is this still Stevie Young on rhythm guitarist, or did they get somebody else to do rhythm? That I don't remember.
That's what I was looking up.
Maybe someone in the chat can
Stevie
help us
Young.
with that.
Yep, it's him.
Okay. He had done it on the previous Rocker Bust also.
Okay. I mean, same thing. Same old AC/DC, really. Post Malcolm Young's passing away, you hear age on this album finally, I think, really starts to show, especially in Brian Johnson's vocals even more. But they don't stray from anything different here. They don't deviate from what their script is. They're still same lyrical content.
Guys talking about creepy sex stuff is a little creepy.
I mean, the riffs are good. There's some good riffs on here.
Yeah.
It's not a terrible album. It's just it's 100% AC/DC, and I wrote this. It's 100% AC/DC, which means it is 0% surprising.
That's actually a really good way to put it. I like that.
Yeah, like it doesn't stand apart from the last several albums at all, which was pretty disappointing for me because I was a little excited when this came out. Thinking maybe there's a little bit of a flame still there, and there still is a flame there. I mean, they're still touring. They're going to be doing a world tour again. But I was reading, and Brian Johnson lost his hearing, so I don't know how that how's that going to go? So I'm glad I saw them when I did.
It got better.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, it's not anything from back in the heyday. It's not one of those albums that are like, oh, they're back or anything like that. Like they're back. I mean, it's AC/DC, but I think I had this at 16. It really didn't wow me. Whatever. Never bought it. I might though, because I always see it on sale, at everywhere now. Like Walmart and Target always have it sitting there. So maybe someday I'll snag it just to add it to the collection. But again, nothing too special for me. Don't really have much others to say about it at this point. It just really didn't do much for me other than that.
Yeah. All right, Alan. Power Up.
Yeah, this one I didn't pay much attention when it came out. Obviously, 2020 release, so COVID and all that was going on. People were a bit preoccupied. I rank it 15, so only 2 below it. But I would still say it's an average record. So
it is.
While it's a low rank, it's not like a crap, rating overall. Production-wise, sound-wise, I kind of like the approach. It actually reminds me a bit of the sound they were getting around the Razor's Edge, which again, I thought, was a good sound for them. Definitely better than what they had done before. But now song-wise, Melanie's absolutely right. That's a really good way to put it. It's 100% AC/DC, which means you already knew what it was going to sound like before you bought it. And I can see how that would have been a bit disappointing for some folks, because if there was a time or an opportunity for this band to change things a little bit, this would have been it. After the passing of Malcolm, bringing Stevie in full time. Here you could have said, okay, maybe we alter it just a bit if there was something you want to do. But again, at this point, given age and such, what's their incentive to do anything different? If they wanted to do something different, they would have done it 20, 30 years ago. I don't think that's something that interests them with this project. And to be fair, I mean, they've played with other projects over the years. We haven't mentioned them, but, Angus and Malcolm, did guitar guest work for years, even while they were in AC/DC with other projects. Brian Johnson has worked with other projects here and there. So it's not like they don't have creative outlets when they do want to do something that's not necessarily AC/DC, but they've always focused on keeping it in that core sound, for better or for worse. I think we've all kind of made it clear that we got to a point in the 21st century where it did become a little too samey to really hold our attention. But yeah, for other folks, they still enjoy it, and that's absolutely great. So yeah, I think it's a good sounding album that's, full of, average AC/DC material. I neither like it nor dislike it. It's there. I don't own it. I don't feel any need to own more AC/DC at this point. If I were going to go out and actually think, oh, what AC/DC album do I want to buy? I would go out and get myself a copy of Flick of the Switch at this point or something. But
Yeah.
I'm pretty good with what I've got. Again, for me, just my approach to music and bands tends to be that once a band has about 7 albums that are similar and all pretty solid, I really, really start to lose interest in acquiring the 8th, the 9th, the 10th, because I know I'm just never going to play them. At that point, there's just too many things in line ahead of them. But that's just me. Other folks can do it. Dig through the whole catalog, and that's absolutely great. But yeah, so 15, but still like, a solid enough average album. And Marty, your rank for this final album?
16 for me, just because it had to fall somewhere. And, everything that Alan said I agree with. And I mean, if you're a diehard AC/DC fan, I mean, you got to rejoice every time one of these things hit, because again, they don't screw up. They don't do anything that pushes their fans away. If anything, they, you're reassured every AC/DC album is going to sound like an AC/DC album. And that's what we have here. Again, if it was at a party playing, I'd be like, yeah, fuck yeah, AC/DC. But yeah, it's just, again, I anticipated Brian's performance to be pretty poor. Not bad at all. He sounds pretty great, to be honest. For someone said he's in his 80s right now. Holy shit. Crazy. So yeah, there we go. We made it. It went longer than I thought, and we're still under 3 hours.
Yep. Let's see. Wade was asking to recap our top 3.
Oops, I threw my paper away.
That's okay. I've got them here. Let's see.
Okay.
So, in summary, let's see. All 3 of us had Powerage at number 1.
Yep.
Let's see. Marty and Melanie had Highway to Hell at number 2, whereas I had Dirty Deeds at number 2. Marty and Melanie continue to be the Bobbsey twin clones, and both have Let There Be Rock at number
duo
3.
Unite.
Yeah, they both had Let There Be Rock at number 3, and I had TNT at number 3. So yeah, not many major deviations in our listings. Overall, I think we all gravitate towards certain eras over others, but yeah, pretty similar takes in general. And we
all processed it very similarly, for sure.
Indeed. But yeah, Melanie, thank you so much for proposing a really fun topic and for joining us and hanging out on this one.
Simon secretly loves AC/DC. He bitches about it, but he stayed here the whole time. It makes no sense.
This was fun.
Yeah, thanks, Mel, for joining us on this. Again, this was one of those shows that once it was thrown out there, I'm like, ha ha ha, they're kidding. Well, no, they weren't kidding.
I gotta ask.
Alan stuck it. He's like, nope, this is happening. He was psyched.
I gotta ask, was this worse than Saxon?
No.
Okay.
No, Saxon was rough. That was Motorhead 2, very long catalog.
Yeah, because I just remember the Saxon stream. You were on the struggle with that.
25 or 6, and the Rage one too. My
Rage
kids,
is a lot.
my kid is still listening to Rage, and I love Rage, but he puts on Rage in the car. I'm like, oh, I'm still not ready to listen to Rage yet. We love you too, Simon.
Love you too, Simon.
There you go, Wade.
So channel stuff, Mel. Anything you want to throw out there? Anything you're going to be on a show you want to talk about?
So yeah, if you guys are familiar with Kyle Messick from Sewer Rot Records, he's the co-owner of Sewer Rot Records. He also has a YouTube channel called Dr. Messick's Death Metal Library. He's got an insane collection. He's got like 8,000 CDs in his collection, and he posts a lot of rare gems, and he does a lot of like metal history videos. He had me on today for a recording, so that'll be coming soon on his channel. It was a lot of fun. I filmed it with Jimmy from the Block and Gruesome Sean, collecting death metal with Gruesome Sean. So it was a really cool conversation. This upcoming Tuesday on my channel, I have Barry from that Goat Metal show coming on, and we're doing a black metal episode. Him and I are pretty much the same in regards to black metal, and still think that we're relatively new, looking through the scene. And so we're just going to have a nice little conversation around black metal. I'm really enjoying having people on my channel. It's something I've been wanting to do for a while, so I'm starting to get more people, and I've been messaging them. So a couple more things coming up, and in December, I'll be doing another week-long giveaway where I'm giving away new stuff every day for a whole entire week, similar to what I did over the summer. So stay tuned to that. They call me the death metal Oprah. So I'll be doing that again just to celebrate the year end. So yeah, a lot of things coming up.
All right, Alan, how about you? Let's talk metal.
Let's see. I went to a record show last weekend. So on Tuesday, I will be posting a video talking about what I found at the record show. I spent money. I bought records. You can see what I picked up Tuesday on Let's Talk Metal. I want to say thank you to all the folks that have commented on last week's video. It was kind of a goofy idea. I just actually pulled up a list of stuff I'd gotten rid of. Had never really thought about it, but I actually did keep a list of records I've gotten rid of over the past 20 years or so, but I never look at it, so I kind of forgot what I'd gotten rid of. So we just scrolled through the A's for like 30 minutes. It was like, well, this is kind of weird, but I'm going to do it because I'm curious what's on here. Folks have actually really enjoyed it, and there's been a lot of good conversations in the chat around the albums I ditched over time. So I'm glad folks enjoyed that and had fun, and I appreciate it.
I recently righted one of your great wrongs, so that's one of the package that's coming.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I don't know which one that is going to be. There were a lot of A's. It took me an entire episode just to get through the letter A. That sheet is much longer than I thought it was. So yeah. Folks have enjoyed it. I will revisit it in future episodes. We'll get to the letter B. We'll see if maybe I can get through 2 or 3 letters at once next time. But yeah, we'll do. Well, let's see. Where's the little shopping cart icon? I don't get the icon.
Oh, I didn't.
Come on, what the fuck? Alan loves selling, apparently, because I got rid of a lot of stuff.
Shame on you.
But yeah, record show report coming up on Tuesday. And Marty, what have we got on Heavy Metallurgy next week?
No reviews as of yet. Wednesday album club.
Y'all just did Sirius this past week.
I can't remember what the album is.
Who picked for next week?
Jim.
No, I don't remember either.
I can't remember. I'm gonna have to ask him. I don't know. I've been too busy with AC/DC to work.
Folks usually enjoy Jim's picks, so it should be something pretty good.
Oh, that's it. Thanks, Tony. Sulfur Eons. The one with the Cthulhu.
That one.
Coming out of the,
Thanks.
Yeah, coming out of the water. Yeah.
That must be probably the second one.
Yeah.
Gateway to the Antisphere.
Yep, that's the one. That's the one.
Okay, yeah. Makes sense. Yep, that seems like a good solid gym pick for sure.
Yep,
for sure.
Yep. And then next Friday, if he has finished crying over his beloved Blue Jays losing in Game 7, I do believe Mr. Darcy's scheduled to join us.
Next Friday, this coming Friday?
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was the Death Book.
Nope, that's 2 weeks from now.
Oh, good. I haven't started reading it yet. Good. I can procrastinate another week before I have to start reading it in a matter of 3 days.
12 days before you have to crack that one.
Oh, no, shit.
Yeah, Darcy's on the is penciled in on the calendar for next week. So hey, it's been a while since Darcy's been able to hang out with us. Hopefully his schedule is still good, and we'll have him on for y'all next Friday.
By the way,
me and Rick, I think go ahead. What?
Yeah, it's because Wolves of Haiti finally has a U.S. shop now, so I can finally order that new Lamp of Murmur album.
Yeah, we got the promo for it. I think me and Rick are going to do a co-review of it. I just have not started listening to it yet. I don't know when it comes out, but yeah, I need to get on that too. Lots of heavy metallurgy homework. We'll get it all figured out.
We always do.
All right, everybody. Thanks a bunch for joining us. Simon, you deserve a Purple Heart for putting up with us talking about a band you hate so much. But thank you for all the super chats, everybody. We appreciate you and for showing up and joining us every Friday. Always a pleasure to hang out with all you fine folks. And Melanie, again, thank you. Everybody go check out Melanie Loves Death Metal if you have not done so. And the Discord server. Why don't you guys go check out the Discord server? It's hopping all week long, having a good time over there as well. So cheers. We will see you next week. Have a great weekend.
We're signing off so Marty can go flick that switch.
Hell yeah.